Merry Christmas and welcome back to the ID Boxing Review Show, where we look back at everything boxing related in 2022. Before we get started, as always, just like to remind everybody, as it's Christmas, to please drop us a like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content this year, next year, and hopefully many more years after that. Now that's out of the way, I am joined today by none other than television pundit, broadcaster, man extraordinaire. I can say it all the time now because Barry's not here, Andy Clarke, and currently unemployed BlockFit box podcast sensation Declan Taylor.
Yeah.
Before we get started, Dec, how is that podcast going?
Do you know what? I'm very glad you asked me that, Rob, because it's going not so bad at all. Have you been listening?
I have, of course.
What's your favourite episode?
The one that you did with Dan Aziz.
Okay, that's the one he's listened to.
I did, yeah.
I've got that on my list of ones to listen to because Dan's boxing on the weekend. But no, I've been listening.
I mean, Dan's already boxed by the time this has gone out, so we won't talk about the
Also,
result of that fight.
Macklin's taken and George Rose Boxing Club cross-pollination recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've come
really?
together. Yeah.
Bit of cross-promotion.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Don't get me on their podcast. I'm more than happy to come on in and talk about theirs, though.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. Where's Barry?
Barry couldn't make it today, actually. Sky took pity on him after seeing the last podcast that we did and brought him in for some work experience. So he's there.
He would have worn a Christmas jumper.
I bet he would.
Did you get the message, Andy? Today saying, have you got a Christmas jumper?
I thought this was happening on another day, and I'd actually earmarked tomorrow morning to go to Primark and get a Christmas jumper. Primark in East Ham has an array of Christmas
I can
jumpers.
imagine.
I'm aware. I know it does. So that's where I was going to secure mine. But Neil Sibley is my favourite episode so far.
Is it? Yeah, great.
Contract lawyer,
Yeah,
big up
really
Neil
good one,
Sibley
that.
every time.
That's probably the highlight of the year, though, isn't it? Would you say the launch of the podcast?
The launch of the George Groves Boxing Club podcast,
It's up there.
probably. It's up there.
In broadcasting terms.
it's,
be up there.
It's definitely up there. We've had to kind of chop and change a little bit at the minute. I think I spoke to both of you yesterday about 3 potential dates. Of course, we're shooting this ahead of time. There's been train strikes, there's been snow, so everything has kind of come crashing down around us. But we are here. We've made it for our big 2022 review. Before we jump straight into things, Andy, how's your 2022 been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been an interesting year. I think things are always eventful in boxing, but I think inside the ring it's been pretty good. I think outside of the ring, in my world, if you like, they've probably been more eventful over the last couple of years or post-COVID than they've ever been in terms of the amount of outlets there are, platforms they are, things appearing, disappearing, reappearing. It's when you're freelancing, you try, and Dec will know this, you try and forecast to a reasonable extent what you think you might be doing and therefore how much money you're going to make. You know it's never going to be an exact science, but it's worth at least attempting it. And I don't think I've ever been more wrong about what I'm going to end up doing than the last year.
Yeah, the last thing you would do is try and do that.
Yeah, at the minute it's basically impossible. But it's good because there's a lot of stuff knocking around. It's keeps you on your toes, definitely.
It certainly does. And Dec, aside from the launch of the George Groves Boxing Club podcast, available now on all of your podcast outlets. Subscribe. Good year for you?
Good year. I mean, in boxing terms, I was thinking about this on the way in. It's kind of been, this year, been a bit about the fights that didn't happen. Still wait. I know I don't want to put down on it from the start.
Just straight away.
But it's true, isn't it? Like, we still haven't had Crawford Spence. We never got that. I ain't going to go through them now because I don't want to do that.
Well,
but
there'll be enough time.
Probably the biggest story in boxing this year, over here anyway, was the fact that Conor Benn and Chris Eubank didn't fight each other. So, like, when you really reflect on the year, it's kind of been a strange one. And also, I've forgotten this, but January of this year, there was no competition because of COVID.
Yes.
It feels like ancient history because of Omicron. Remember Omicron?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Haven't heard of that in a while.
Yeah, bring back Omicron.
Definitely not. Definitely. Well, we were just touching upon the fact that this time last year when we were doing our end of year review, that was spoiled by COVID. So
everyone was getting COVID this time last year.
Yeah.
Chisora Parker 2.
December.
For any fight to get COVID and miss Christmas for, Chisora Parker 2.
Yeah, absolutely. It was December the 18th, wasn't it? It was that weekend where loads of people I know who worked on shows got COVID. I went to Kiev for Krasiuk and K2, and I don't know how I didn't get it because maybe no one there had it because that's the only explanation. I didn't even get it off you. I think I'm too hard for COVID.
You are, mate.
I think
100%.
Too
busy.
Too strong.
Yeah.
Too big.
Too big, too strong.
He backed COVID up.
Yeah.
Smash it to pieces.
Hall of Fame Carl Froch,
Yeah.
also available on
Yeah,
the George Groves
get on
Boxing
that
Club
episode.
podcast. That's a very good one. But yeah, let's jump straight into it. Nobody cares about how my year was, but let's.
Actually, that's a good point, because last year you were fucked, weren't you? Was that 2021 was the year of the lung?
Yes, last August
So
was
this
the
year,
year of the
back
line.
on your
It's had a
feet.
massive year, actually.
Yeah, back on
ID
your feet.
boxing, you
ID
started.
boxing.
Yes.
Getting into
yeah.
this later on.
KFC.
Yeah, we're going to be getting into this later. There's been way too much KFC.
How many
Can't-
pizzas?
A lot. Too
Yeah.
many pizzas. Yeah, KFC this past weekend, I'm still actually recovering from. Not even joking.
It's a long hangover, that one.
Yeah, mate. And the older you get, it's like more miles on the clock now. I've had a lot of wars. In the,
Yeah, you have,
In the
Fights that change a man.
On the night, in the gym,
That gravy.
everywhere.
the Colonel's just starting to get on top of me now, mate. He's dragged me into the late
Yeah,
rounds.
he's a weight bully as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's a
exactly.
famous weight bully.
It'd be
He
different.
is.
It'd be difficult to bully me when it comes to
Rehydration
weight.
clauses at the curb.
No, but no, yeah, it's been an interesting year. Yeah, we've launched ID Boxing. We will come on to this later, so I don't want to step too much on it. But yeah, I was speaking to Jordan over there, Jordan Pollock, shout out Jordan Pollock, about the fact that we did enter this year with no boxing, which seems, as you say, ancient history. There was no boxing in Britain in January, but there was, of course, boxing in America, which is where we'll pick up and start from. I love a heavyweight fight. New Year's Day, we had Luis Ortiz versus Charles Martin.
Fuck, yeah.
Do you remember that?
No,
Fight
I can't
TV on pay-per-view. I paid for it,
Yeah, of
paid for
course.
everything.
What did you eat with it?
Like I document all of it. Oh, yeah, probably.
Tell me.
Christmassy.
To be fair, it was January the
Just loads of
1st. I was
cheese.
probably on like a little kind of health kick, like for like a day, and then the show started.
I can't remember those two fighting ever. Are you sure it happened?
I'm sure it happened. But let's probably start with Andy there for Luis Ortiz versus Charles Martin. I think, I don't think many people knew really what to expect from that fight. We had Charles Martin, who is kind of more known for his loss to Anthony Joshua and his Burger King crown than anything else. And Luis Ortiz, who of course, avoided fighter and had those 2 stoppage losses to Deontay Wilder. But I think the general consensus was that Ortiz would go in and have his way with Charles Martin, but it didn't really turn out that way, Andy.
You're going to have to remind me what did happen.
These bloody amateurs here.
That's a long time ago.
So what happened was Charles Martin dropped him twice, if you remember.
Yes.
He
I remember
dropped
it.
him with a left hand, and he also dropped him with a jab.
Yeah.
Before Luis Ortiz hit him with a big left hand, I think in the 6th round, and sent him kind of spinning to one side and talking to somebody outside
Yeah.
of the ring. So good start here for January the 1st.
Mate, January, that's a long time ago.
It feels like, I don't know why.
Yeah, and also, like I said before we started, that honestly, when you look back at these things, that feels like, I can't remember it, but it feels like half the fights we talk about feel like they happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But also there's stuff that I think, that was this year, like Sander Martin beating
Mikey Garcia.
But that was 2021.
Yeah.
So that wasn't even this year. So
God,
yeah,
I miss
I'm
Barry
fucked.
Jones.
Yeah, bring back Barry. Barry didn't watch that. He hates heavyweights.
Yeah, he
For
definitely.
knockout of the year, I was thinking, oh yeah, definitely Kiko Martinez against Kid Galahad. And I thought, wait, was that?
No.
When did that happen?
He's done someone else since.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Exactly.
certainly has.
But now I do remember it. Now you jog my memory, and it had 2 people in it, that fight, who I've always been kind of interested in, because whenever people talk about Luis Ortiz, they just immediately make some hilarious gag about him being 87, and just overlook the fact that however old he is,
he can still fight.
still
he can
doing it.
still fight, and he's
Yeah.
still doing it. So I didn't really expect Charles Martin to get anything done with him at all, to be honest, because what we remember about him is, to be honest, just him coming over and making a complete spectacle of himself against AJ, not training a lick, as I understand it from people I know whose
Yeah, 'cause his
whose
shorts
gym
were
he
too
was
small,
supposed to be at.
which is the big giveaway. When the shorts are too small, he's bought them 3 months out thinking, these will fit me, and then hasn't done the work.
Yes.
And then they don't fit him.
Yeah.
But it's true. The thing with Charles Martin is I remember when he was on the come up, it obviously all happened too quickly for him. Same as it did with Joshua. You know, remember it was the IBF peel off?
Vyacheslav Glaskov.
Glasgow and his knee
Yeah.
goes or whatever happened.
Yeah.
And but he was really on a steady path, and he's a big southpaw and stuff. Maybe, he wasn't due, he didn't deserve to win a world title at that point, but he is seen as a figure of fun, but he can actually fight, and he showed it in that fight.
Yeah, he did. I think he put himself back in the shop window for potentially bigger fights as the years go by. But
We're not going through every fight of the year.
we're not going through every single fight. Right, the co-main on January the 1st. We're going to skip forward a few weeks' time. World title fight, the first world title fight of the year, Mark Magsayo, which at the time was a big upset against Gary Russell Jr. We all know Gary Russell as one of the most talented fighters in the sport, really, over the last few years, but plagued by inactivity. And he came up against somebody too big, too strong, to borrow a phrase from Carl Froch. Young, fresh, Martin Magsayo. We saw that. I've seen that photo of him stood next to Sean Porter in the past, where you see featherweight, welterweight, and you see just how big he is. But yeah, that was an interesting start to the year for Martin Magsayo.
I remember, I think I did that preview for Boxing News, and I picked Russell like everyone else did, because it just thought on pedigree and career and everything. But then when you look back at it, he had problems outside the ring, like his dad died.
His dad, I think his dad had diabetes and he had his leg amputated.
Yeah.
And I think his dad died after that.
Yeah.
But he was very ill when he wasn't training.
And that sort of goes to then show what, it's not the only reason for his inactivity, but it's not like he's had stuff going on outside the ring, but he has been famously inactive. And then in the end, it's just kind of one of those where it caught up with him, and whether he took it for granted or whatever. But you're right, it was just the size looked mad on the night. Massive upset. I'd forgotten about that when I was thinking about upsets of the year as well. It was a big one.
It certainly was. Andy, Martin Magsayo versus Gary Russell. Were you as surprised as Deck was?
Yeah, I was. And I've never quite been able to work out whether I think Gary Russell Jr. has done it right or done it wrong in the way that he's gone about things. Because most people would say probably that, well, we tend to be quite critical of the fact that he basically won that title, then boxed once a year. But in doing that, he'll have made decent purses every time that he's boxed. Boxing hasn't taken over his entire life, and he's probably got out of the sport, if that's him done now, without any real damage. So maybe he's won. Yep. I don't know. It's hard to say, isn't it? When you look at the approach that he's taken. He's been frustrating because he is a really good fighter, and it would have been good to have seen him maybe 3 times every 2 years rather than twice. You know, that's not a massive stretch, I don't think, is it, to box 1.5 times a year? But no, I didn't think he would lose to Magsayo. But I guess inactivity catches up with you at some point as well. We usually talk about miles on the clock and people that catching up with people, but I think the ability to kind of turn it on that one night, that infrequently as you get older, probably gets harder too.
Yeah, also had an injury in that fight as well. I think the lead shoulder was one of his shoulders. He essentially boxed the second half of the fight with one hand, which against a big, strong, strapping young man like Mark Magsayo is going to make things extremely difficult. We're going to breeze past Ilunga Makabu versus Thabisa Machunu too, and get into February, where we saw return of British boxing. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Williams. That feels like a couple of years ago now.
It really does.
But it wasn't. Chris Eubank Jr. in a fight that we'd all kind of looked forward to. I think we were supposed to have it before Christmas. There was the delay, and then, of course, we got it in February. We had a lot of talk and a lot of kind of back and forth between the two, and then a pretty one-sided fight on the night.
It was, and I believe you're right. I think it was third time lucky, because it was also supposed to be January 28th. So then when the board said that there'd be no competition, it just
pushed it for a week.
Precluded that from happening. So in February. And I was basically how you saw it, like disappointed in how it didn't really catch fire. I've always been a massive fan of Liam Williams. I always thought he's been underrated for a long time, but Eubank, what can you say about Eubank? He's even after that disappointment, and he's had a weird few years as well, and we'll get on to exactly how weird it got from this year. But yeah,
it was one of those. I went to that fight. I was there for TalkSport, and it was weird because I emerged from it, even though he's won courtesy of 4 knockdowns against a really strong fighter, still not with any clearer an idea of how good he is.
Completely, yeah.
It's just, which is bizarre, because if you think about it, knocking Liam Williams down 4 times, that's impressive.
You think it's a rout, but really it wasn't.
But it wasn't. Yeah, it was strange. In the second half of the fight, he kind of drifted, and Williams came back into it. He was always going to have far too much to do, and he never looked like he was going to knock him out. But you got to the end, and you just thought, I don't really know what conclusions to draw from it. And I think we're all kind of still in that place with Eubank, which is mad when you consider how long he's been doing this now. Yeah,
absolutely. And it was kind of his Roy Jones Jr. version of himself that night. And I do believe what he said when he said that, he didn't push for the stoppage because he wanted to keep him in there and teach him a lesson and stuff. Some fighters say that, and you kind of think, yeah, I mean, you didn't put your foot down, you didn't get the stoppage. But I do kind of believe it with him. He has that sort of cerebral mentality sometimes where he likes to sort of play with his food and keep people in there and as he says, teach him a lesson. But I was disappointed with Liam Williams. He has, of course, since he was with Adam Booth for that fight, he's gone back now with Gary Lockett. I wonder if he's a little bit on the downward slope now. We saw him back a couple of weeks ago. He hasn't really looked quite himself.
We had that really odd situation where he got put down by a jab, put down and buzzed badly by a jab, or certainly a left hand that he threw on on the retreat. Eubank, didn't he? So whether you would describe it as a jab strictly or just a straight left hand, but he got put down and hurt by it. And I looked at that and just thought maybe he's having problems with the weight, but I don't really know how that happened because he's still at middleweight, so presumably he didn't really. I don't know. It was that sort of a night, wasn't it, where just stuff happened and you couldn't really explain.
It wasn't like a star-making performance from you, but I mean, when you look at it now in the cold light of day, 4 knockdowns and that one-sided beatdown, but it didn't.
No,
it wasn't quite.
It's not how we're looking back at it.
Not
We're
at
not
all.
looking back at it going, "Oh, what a brilliant performance from Chris Eubank Jr." We're looking back at it and going, "Yeah, well, he's kind of let him in there." And Williams come back in the second half of the fight. I think touching on your point there about the weight, we had Andy out in, I can't remember where it was, for the Demetrius Andrade fight, Andrade Williams for the world title. I remember Andy speaking to me about how heavy Williams was in the build-up to that fight and how a couple of days out from the fight, Williams was quite downtrodden. He felt like he wasn't going to make the weight. By all accounts for that Eubank fight, I don't know whether or not it's because it was delayed and pushed back. I think he had to take off a lot of the weight in fight week, so I think he was pretty heavy, and that's how he does the weight. And then it's exactly,
that must be it.
And he, he walked into a couple. I mean, there were jabs, but they were stinging jabs, and yeah, I think that his punch resistance maybe not what it once was. Elsewhere that night, the 5th of February, really busy night of action. A star-making performance across the pond from a certain Jesse Rodriguez against Carlos Cuadras. The first time that we discuss Bam Rodriguez today. I'm sure it won't be the last. Deck, going to come to you first. He was... I'm going to throw myself out there. He was my fighter to watch and become a world champion this year, unlike Andy, who picked Chris Eubank Jr. Thought we'd got away from it when we moved away from Eubank Williams. I never forget. But Bam Rodriguez, I think...
him again this year.
Bam Rodriguez, Deck, I think one of, if not the breakout stars of 2022.
He's the breakout star. Are we doing breakout star?
We're not doing it yet.
Okay, we're not doing it yet. But I know at that point, in 2021, at the end of 2021, I think he was 13-0. And he was about 110 pounds. And then he comes into that fight against Cuadras, who in that weight division is a sort of living legend, or at least an icon of the division. Yeah. To do that, it was, like you say, there were, we knew about him and there were murmurs and we knew how good he was, but it's like, you've got Carlos Cuadras now, go and do your thing. You kind of, you have to be special to do what he did do on that night. And it was an absolute star. When was that, February the 5th?
February the 5th, and he jumped from light fly to super fly.
Straight up. Yeah. That's what I mean. So before, he's 13-0 and he's down there, and then he's up at super fly. I know in those divisions, it's a little bit more, you can kind of do it a little bit more freely. But we did the business that night, and obviously it goes on like that throughout the year, but it was a sign of things to come. Yeah,
amazing. He had that lovely, I'm going to say it because he's not here, that lovely pivot off the front foot from the southpaw stance and that uppercut just round the corner. You see Cuadras kind of, what was that?
Yeah, that was one of those little clips that went viral. Yeah. It's one of those ones that everyone's posting.
Andy, seems like a silly question. Fan of Bam?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that much about him before this year, to be honest with you. I was aware of the name and what he was kind of up to, but I hadn't particularly checked him out all that closely. The first time I really looked at him was after this time last year, after you picked him out, and the confidence you've got to have to kind of take that fight, and the confidence that people around you have got to have in you to take it. Often, that kind of gives you your answer. I remember I always look at somebody like Gervonta Davis as well. Everybody was going on about how great he was, and I just thought, okay, well, we'll see. But then when he got the chance to step up against Pedraza, wasn't it? I think his first kind of real big fight for a world title. You could see that what they were talking about was just absolutely real, and they knew it was, and they went into the fight knowing as much as you ever can what was going to happen. And if you were around Bam Rodriguez, it'd be the same thing, wouldn't it? You'd be sitting there smugly thinking, you can all think what you want about this being too much too soon, but we know it isn't. And it wasn't. And there just doesn't really seem to be any stopping him in every way, which is great, because I just don't think there's any fight that he wouldn't take, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. We caught up with Robert Garcia in August. Obviously, he was working with Anthony Joshua for the Usyk rematch, and he said, "Look, he's the best fighter in the gym." And you consider, the fighters that he's had in the gym, and I think he kind of alluded to one of the other prospects, Fury-Ortiz, who had left the gym, who maybe felt that he was, not being afforded the same star treatment as Bam Rodriguez. And I think Robert was very honest and open and said, "Look, I think he's the best fighter that we've got," and he's gone on to prove that, of course, later on in the year, which we'll come on to. With that win over Sarissa Ketzel-Rungvisai.
Was the Quadras one the one where he was the late standing? Was that sort of
yes?
Yeah.
Get called up late for it.
He was the late
stand.
He was the late standing.
Martinez.
Yeah. And
so even more amazing, he was like a late.
I think it was like 3 weeks as well. Like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Maybe he was going to be on the card or something like that.
I think so. He was in the gym. It wasn't like they didn't pull him off the sofa. And he's like, I'm super fly, no problem.
Easy. But even more remarkable win to do that off as a late standing, just to take his chance like that.
Absolutely. Following week, back over on these shores, we have our first controversial decision, I think. And there's a few of them on this list. John Ryder versus Danny Jacobs. I'm going to throw it over to you first, Deck. John Ryder versus Danny Jacobs, split decision win for John Ryder. How did you see the fight, first of all?
I'm trying to remember that. We had Ryder on the pod this week, and I'm trying to think exactly. He started really well in that fight.
Jacobs did.
Yeah, Jacobs started really well and looked like he was going to walk away with it, because Danny Jacobs still is a or at least he's a proper name for Ryder.
Yeah.
And like
fight.
it was a headline fight, Ali Pali, so it was a proper occasion for Ryder. And after a few rounds, it looked like it's too much for him. And Jacobs still is Danny Jacobs, and he's gonna kind of win this one reasonably comfy. But then he came back into it, Ryder.
Yeah.
I can't remember how I scored it, but I remember it. It was one of them where it could have gone any way, and like there's no scream up anywhere, and he won a split, Ryder. I remember just being disappointed with the way that Danny Jacobs faded, and it gave me more ammo for my theory that if you pick a current song for your walkout, you lose. And Jacobs picked like a TikTok song.
Yeah, he picked like the Walk into the Moon thing. Yeah.
As soon as you pick a current song, you lose.
Or any song that's made famous by TikTok.
Yeah, and I wish someone would do a study on it, but I feel that if you
that's something for you to do.
If you pick a current song, it means you're going, what should I walk? Oh, don't give a fuck. Like, just pick something instead of actually thinking and caring about it. It's like, when people turn up and they're on the left of the car, they're on the right side of the card and they've got nice shorts. You think, oh, look out,
they're taking it seriously.
Yeah. And their team have got tracksuits on. As soon as Jacobs came out to a TikTok song, I was like, he's in trouble here.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that, because anyone who doesn't,
such a wonderful theory.
Anyone who doesn't take their ring walk or kit seriously enough, I've got no time for it.
Mate, if you come to London for a big headline fight and you can't really think of a song, I think it points towards how you're thinking about the fight. And it's like, I'll turn up, I'll do the business. John Ryder, this will be fine. Any song, I'll get my daughter to pick it. Like, it's not a good sign.
No, it's not.
So he was fucked from the time he walked out, and I knew it.
Deservedly.
Yeah, got on the in-play.
Yeah, as you see, like kind of somebody on the right side of the card turning up with sort of nondescript shorts and coming into James Brown, the boss, or something like that. Then he's getting chinned, that guy. Right, back to
reality.
Yeah, exactly. Andy, how did you see that fight, John Ryder and Danny Jacobs?
I'm by the end of it, I felt like John maybe hadn't quite done enough on my card, and we should never really be having to reference things like this, but because he's at home, I kind of felt like he may well have done enough. And that's an imperfect situation, but one that we just live with in boxing. So I don't think there was cause for any enormous complaint that he did get the decision. But it still kind of irritates me a bit when you see people say afterwards, oh, well, he was unlucky against Callum Smith, so it's fair enough that he gets this one. Yeah. The things are not connected. Or at least they shouldn't be.
Tell that to Danny Jacobs. Yeah. He had a close one with Callum Smith, Danny.
But did you hear his walkout?
Yeah.
Give it to Ryder.
Yeah. Danny, I think you would agree that John was unlucky against Callum Smith, and you let yourself down with your choice of music, so therefore...
Give it, John.
Yeah, give it, John.
What do you feel about Ali Pali? I love Ali Pali. People give it some heat, but
no, I like it.
I love Ali Pali.
I was there a couple of weeks ago. When
we were there on the Sunday
boxing, and it was. I think the room that you put it in, if it's always the same one. I've only been there. I remember going there to watch a Lenny Dawes fight, probably in about 2007 or something like that, maybe even earlier.
Bellew box there,
and then I hadn't been there until the other week. But I just thought the room we were in was just epic. I just really love that building. It's really, I can imagine what it was like when it was opened. You kind of like, we had the press conference in this kind of like Egyptian bit, It's the kind of place you sort of expect to see kind of Hercule Poirot scurrying around. It's
He
just
was on the undercast.
yeah.
4 threes.
I really enjoy
Nice shorts.
just sort of just tricky technical fight.
Yeah,
Poirot,
it was
isn't it?
very rangy.
But I enjoyed it. I like Alexandra Palace. It's not the easiest place in the world to get to.
But I used to
Mate,
live in
do you know
Hornsey,
how-
so I used to walk it. That's why I like it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, get me getting up that hill, mate. Like, I was literally thinking, like, healthy, just walk up the hill. Like, don't need to get an Uber. Everyone's like, I'm getting an Uber. I'm going to walk, mate. And it's only like, mate, halfway up there, I had to have a.
I had to go have a KFC.
Literally got Uber Eats. Excuse me, mate. Can you just take me up that hill as well while you're at it? But anyway, again, back to reality. I thought John Ryder won that fight. Not John Ryder. Danny Jacobs won the fight. I thought it was a close but clear 7-5.
He did enough early.
I
early
felt,
on,
yeah. I felt like he won the fight. He banked the rounds early in the fight. But because of his stupid walkout tune, I don't really care.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And moving on. Finally, we got there, guys. Kell-Brook and Amir Khan settled their 47-year rivalry and finally got in the ring in the Manchester Arena. I think it's fair to say it was long overdue. But Andy, we got there in the end, and Kell-Brook a clear and worthy winner on the night.
Absolutely. I was there for that one, and I very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed Fight Week. I thought it was the first really big night that Boxer and Sky had done together, and I thought it went really, really well. The weigh-in, all the rest of it. The two fighters played their part, two very experienced guys. They knew exactly how to sell all of that. And then on the night, speaking about walkout tunes, Kell-Brook with the piano.
That walkout
he
was
wasn't
amazing.
playing it, but it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was great.
His gloves on.
Yeah.
It was tremendous. All of that was really, really good. And we had a nice bit of drama beforehand because we had the whole glove thing, and then Cal makes his entrance, and Dominic's kind of cutting the gloves off because he left them on so he could warm up properly, and then they changed them, and Amir comes in. The fight itself, when you look back on it, it was a one-sided beatdown.
It really was.
But watching it, it was still quite dramatic because Khan was staying on his feet. He looked like he would go down, and he didn't go down. And I just remember the kind of level of it from my point of view was pretty sort of voice register and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of up there pretty much all the way through, even though it was just a very one-sided fight.
Deck.
But as an event, it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Were you there?
Yeah. My overriding feeling, emotion watching it was, it's such a shame that we didn't get this when it mattered.
Yeah.
Really. And because I know what you mean, it was dramatic and it was nice, and it was good to see him, and it was great for Boxer and all that stuff. But almost from the very start, you thought, oh, fuck. This is kind of what we thought. We knew that neither of them had very much left because of what happened with Crawford, Kell-Brook, where he got stopped by a jab.
Yeah.
Proper spinner. And obviously we know what's happened to Khan over the years. So it was who's got the most left. And it was clear that Kell-Brook had far more left. And that was sad, wasn't it? Because the whole point of that fight is that over the years it was like, well, Khan's speed, but he is vulnerable still, or he's fragile. But can he just get in and out quickly enough and score the points? And maybe, but then it was evident that was just not the case. And all those intangibles and all those question marks that we had, none of them really were relevant.
It kind of became, rather than a clash of styles, it became a bit of a shootout, really, didn't it? Rather than it being, the boxer versus the puncher, or the speed versus the timing, or anything like that. It was just, who's going to get off first, and can the other one hold the shot, really?
And it's funny with Khan, because he's over the years, he's had to prove that he's brave, and he's one of the bravest fighters we've produced in this generation based on what he's done. But he's sort of heckled a bit and called chinny and everything else. But that night, probably more than any other night, he proved how brave he was.
He weren't going anywhere, was he?
God.
Because everything that was on the table, and people can talk about what they want with Khan, and even both of them, they've made a lot of money, been in some big fights over the years. That was the one. And despite that, Khan kind of, he always held the aces when it came to that fight and making that fight. And he did he took that fight when there was no real other options left for him. He did the Canelo fight when it was close. He had the Crawford fight. There was a couple of times we thought, it could happen. And he really did wait until there was really nothing else left for him.
He boxed Billy Dib, didn't he, in Saudi?
For $10 million.
Yeah, and then he was hoping to get Pacquiao in Saudi for the same sort of money. And that would have been vindicated his decision to go that route. But then, did he box again after Billy did before the Brook fight? I'm trying to think what his fight was before then. But
I don't think
you're right. The point was, it was sort of like, oh shit.
It was the my point with it is it was the last kind of fight that he could reasonably have for good money, but it still meant a lot. There's no way that fight didn't mean anything for him. I mean, he took it really well. The defeat, he was very classy, and as he always has been throughout his career. I mean, Lamont Peterson, but that was just kind of a very different vibe. But you could tell that it really mattered. And also, on the flip side of that, you could see how much it meant to Kell-Brook.
Yeah.
After the fight, with Kell-Brook...
And Ingle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with shattered eye sockets and stab wounds and all sorts of stuff, and, you know, ballooning up and down in weight and chasing that fight, and arguably, you know, wasting some of his prime of his career to get that fight. He finally got it. I think, what did he have written on his raps? Told you, or something like that afterwards, which I thought was really good. And it was... While Khan has always had like the esteem and has always had, you know, he's been the bigger name and the one with the achievements, it was nice to see Brook kind of, after all of these years, get that win and be vindicated and be able to say, look, I told you, and this is why you didn't want to fight me. So it was a good spectacle. But yeah, if they'd have done it in 2012 or something like that, that would have been the fight. That would have been the time to do it around then, I think.
If you were ranking where they land in the sort of all-time greats of British boxing, who's higher?
I think Khan. I think Khan's got to be higher for me.
Body of work.
But I do think Brook would have probably always beat him.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say exactly that. But then again, I would say that Amir was best at super lightweight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brook's a big welter.
Yeah. I always felt like if they boxed when they should have, that Brook probably would have won. But I would have loved to have seen it.
Yeah, and I do feel like
it's a really obvious thing.
The first sort of 4 or 5 rounds of that fight, I do feel like Khan would have given him all kinds of problems. The in and out style and the hand speed and punch variety as well for Khan. He was great to the body, like early in his career at 140. Yeah, Maidana. He used to hurt a lot of fighters to the body. Jazab Judah knocked out with a body shot.
You mentioned Peterson there, and I just remember watching that fight. I remember I'd covered a card in Peter Lee with Sky, and we all stayed up and watched it, obviously, because they'd just got him back on Sky, actually. And that was... It didn't all go wrong from there, but he should have won that fight, and he didn't. And then the rematch didn't happen because of the synthetic testosterone with Peterson. And then he never went on to really... I didn't feel that super lightweight do what he could have. But every fighter's got those kinds of passages in their career, I guess. But that fight for me always sticks out because he knocked him down in the first round, and it wasn't a heavy knockdown. It was kind of called at the time as being writing on the wall. He's got him down. I remember looking at it just thinking, Peterson kind of looks okay. He didn't trip over, but it wasn't a big knockdown. But it was a kind of a wild night in Washington, wasn't it? And that one always sticks in my mind because I just thought, he could have gone and done something absolutely mega Amir Khan, I thought. And what he did was amazing. But
I feel like he made the most of his prime years, or made more of his prime years than Brook did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They came earlier, obviously, because he started earlier, 70. But what he did the way he did it in America and with Judah and unifying the title at 140 and the Maidana fight and all that sort of stuff. And then even when he beat like Collazo and that, you know, he went on that run. Devin Alexander was an amazing win.
Yeah.
Brook got stabbed after he won his belt, and then he was out.
And he boxed Jojo Dan, Kevin Bizier,
and he waited around
Frankie Gavin.
Yeah, he waited around for like Chavez.
Yeah, Diego Chavez.
Yeah, he waited around for Jesse Vargas.
Jesse Vargas.
So he did a lot of waiting.
I always think he did a lot of waiting wait for those guys, and that's without talking about Amir Khan. And at the time, you had Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. They were both still active welterweights at the time. Brook, I think a lot of fighters would have looked at him and thought, like, that win over Sean Porter was a great win, a brilliant win, and that really, like, because at the time Porter was getting the big push. He destroyed Paulie Malignaggi the fight before that. He beat Devin Alexander as an underdog in that fight as well, kind of out hustled him. It was just kind of Sean Portered him really.
Beat Randall Bailey.
Well, it showed what a technically good fighter he is, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because only really high level technical fighters are beating Porter.
Yeah, buzzed him at the end of that first round, didn't he? He caught him with a right hand, and then after that he kind of neutralised him a little bit. That was a close fight, but one that I thought he won well. But yeah, Brook. So I had this conversation with somebody on Twitter today. It's a conversation, argument. We were talking about Kell-Brook and the fact that, you know, he ended up boxing Terence Crawford at 147. I think he hadn't made the weight in over 3 years at the time, and he had like that, even at that period of kind of like Sergey Rabchenko and
Good against Rabchenko.
Yeah.
yeah,
Did that
Rabchenko was
fight
a solid sort of operator,
and
wasn't
I thought
he?
that was a real good comeback.
I think that was at like 152 maybe or something. It might
They
have been
did
a
that. I
154.
think they did that at 154, and then he chose to weigh in at 150 against
The Italian boxing, like an
Sheffield,
Italian
kind of
American
late
guy.
2018 or early 2019.
Oh,
early
I know the
2020.
stripper.
I think
The
so.
Aussie.
Yeah.
It's Michael Zarafa.
Zarafa.
Zarafa. Yeah, he's gone on to have a decent
He
little
has,
career.
yeah.
And he chose to. I think that was at 154 too,
Yeah.
but he deliberately came in at 150 or 151
That's
to
right.
show everybody that he could
can
do
make
either.
welter. And
he
then
just
after that, he
looked a
boxed
bit-
Mark DeLuca.
And he looked a bit underwhelming that night, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he certainly did. But that was Amir Khan versus Kell-Brook. Who would you have as your hire in the pantheon
Khan.
of British boxing? Yeah.
Can't just because on the cheap, and you just lay it out, and there's a lot of context in which we are aware of because we've lived through it. But
Yeah.
You have to just look at what
From the Olympics onwards.
Yeah, the Olympics.
Exactly.
are
It's
meant to,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Brought a lot of eyeballs to the sport at a time where it really needed it. Right, so we had John Ryder versus Danny Jacobs. We've now gone on to the 26th of February. Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall. Josh Taylor successfully defends the undisputed super lightweight titles in a hotly disputed split decision win. Deck, going to come to you first. How did you see the fight?
I had Catterall winning, I think like everyone did, and I was just massively impressed with him, first of all, because I think in the shake-up, a lot, really, the story was how bad Taylor had looked and he got this robbery, and a lot was forgotten of how good Catterall had looked on the night. And was that down to, we're going to find out, aren't we, very soon, but was that down to Taylor being off the boil, or was it just perfectly executed, quote-unquote, game plan, or did he just get it right on the night? I thought it was a very good performance. Taylor got better as the fight went on and like had some success, but I definitely thought Catterall won by a couple. I seem to remember, I can't remember the scorecard, but for me it was not even a conversation.
Yeah, there was a knockdown, and then there was Taylor had 2 points taken off as well. Catterall had 1 taken off.
That's right.
So yeah, Andy.
Yeah, I was away for this fight, and I was in Bulgaria at the Strandja tournament. And what I always find really interesting in situations like that is that I listened to the tail end of the fight on 5 Live, and Big Ron McIntosh, Carl Frampton was on it, and Barry was on it, and they were all, when the final bell went, just in agreement that Catterall had won, and he'd obviously won, and they weren't even talking about whether he'd get it or not. They were just saying that he'd won. So then when he didn't get it, you see the outcry, and you can see that the consensus was overwhelming, because sometimes when you don't see a fight, then you see the consensus, which can form quite rapidly online, and sometimes around relatively small amount of opinions from credible people. You then watch the fight back and you think, this isn't what as advertised. But that was. I watched it back.
Andre Ward scored Taylor winner quite.
Andre Ward has some crazy scorecards. I mean, obviously Andre Ward, one of the greatest fighters. So who am I to say? But some of the stuff he comes out with.
He's a perfect example though, because a consensus could form around Andre Ward's opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Andre Ward had him win.
Especially if he's on the comms and he's talking it through.
And this is what happens sometimes, isn't it?
And
But
people sometimes at home not actually watching the fight. Like are watching it, but they're not watching it.
Yeah.
Certainly not scoring it and
Exactly.
whatever. And then so if you got it in your ear and you're like, oh, this is quite clear. Because then I remember a lot of people in America, you know, when you follow these fights on Twitter and you think, fucking hell, some of the American journalists have got this totally different to me. Like, why are we seeing this so wildly differently?
Yeah.
And that's could have been why. Top Rank brought a lot of people here. Like,
Bradley over.
exactly, it was a big push.
Yeah.
So when you you watched it back.
Yeah, I watched it when I got home, and I give Catterall 1. And I remember, I think I watched it a couple of times, and I thought, right, okay, I'll give Taylor everything I can give him, and I still had Catterall by a point, and that was giving Taylor everything that I could have, wouldn't have, but everything that I could conceive of giving him.
So you'd have had it 6 rounds apiece. by doing that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
You got
That's
to guard
right.
against in those fights, haven't you? Overrating Catterall because you don't expect it of him.
Yeah.
And also underrating Taylor
Yeah.
in a close round.
Yeah.
And also when Catterall had the start that he'd made, I think some of those later rounds, because Taylor was doing better than he was in the early rounds, some people were potentially more swayed to give him the rounds.
What was heartbreaking, I remember the week after, just thinking about it, Jack Catterall obviously been waiting around for years and waiting for his chance. He should have woken up as a unified, undisputed champion. And like his whole life changes.
Yeah.
In reality, what's happened is he hasn't boxed since. So he's got the rematch, but now the rematch is for one belt or...
One belt, and we don't even have a date. I think it's
No.
going to be sometime in April.
So it's like, that's mad. Whereas if he'd won the fight like he should have done, won the fight like any other self-respecting sport, he'd get the result that he worked for and he got. He wakes up with 4 belts and it's like his life has changed beyond all, imagination, and because of the thing that he's done, because of his hard work and his achievement. And then he can and then he get a rematch, probably do a rematch, but it's on his terms and he can do this, or he takes the manager's, whatever. All of that was taken out of his hands. And I know Josh Taylor would be bristling to hear that, and he didn't like the criticism and stuff. But when you reflect on that fight, you have to just feel for Jack Catterall.
Yeah.
What that decision going against him actually means in life terms, and it was quite colossal, really.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time people don't necessarily see that whole picture, and they think about it in terms of the glory and the fact that you should be undisputed champion and pictures with belts and all the rest of it. But if you get the rough end of the stick in a world title fight, the financial implications are massive.
Especially as a good southpaw.
Yeah.
Who needs him clubs?
Exactly. And if you're undisputed champion, then that's when you make the money, as we know, when you're defending the title. We mentioned Ryder earlier on, and his decision against Callum Smith wasn't the same, but a lot of people felt like John probably definitely should have got that decision, and the knock-on effect is that you then don't get to box as defending champion, which is where you make the money. So yeah, I agree with all of that, and I think we'll see in the rematch, like you said, but he's quite impressive, Catterall, kind of like from his mental fortitude kind
Massively,
of way. In a way that he boxed, but also the way that he seems to have handled the whole thing, because it can't have been easy. It must have been really, really hard.
And he kind of has that sort of very unassuming, quiet, sort of everyman quality about him, Catterall. And he kind of
interview, isn't he?
Yes, he is. But he's somebody that when he was coming through in the early stages of his career, everybody was on the train, and he kind of had that lull in his career where he wasn't really getting the big fights. He had that terrible fight with Ahara Davis in Leicester. That was awful. That's one of the worst fights I've ever seen live. That was really bad. Same night as Daniel Dubois chased Kevin Johnson around the ring for 10 rounds. That was awesome.
Nicola Adams won a world title that night.
Yes, really good fight at the after the main
Archie
event.
Sharp.
Archie Sharp and Leon Woodstock. Really good fight.
Fun fact, my son Archie,
Named after Archie Sharp?
Kind of. It's one of them where it's like, oh, Archie, that's a fucking great name. And it was because I was reporting that night for all sorts of people that night, because no one wanted to go to Leicester, so I was doing that.
I remember, yeah.
So, fuck, Archie, that's a good name. And then a few months later, my son was born. So.
There we go. So
It was going to be Leon, but he lost.
Similar sort of story with me naming my daughter Lara as a sort of...
Lara.
Yes. Mauricio Lara. Erislandi Lara was boxing on like a Showtime card. I think he boxed.
Nicky Adams?
I mean, it was him, Charlo. I think it was Terrell Gaucher. And yeah, I remember I got stuck on like a press release. I don't know how we've gone here. And I remember thinking at the time, like, just Lara, get Lara done. My daughter was born 2 days later, and I'm literally thinking, hey, what about Lara? That's a good name. So there we go. Anyway. Before we move on, Josh Taylor, of course, has since left Ben Davison. He's now trained by Joe McNally in Liverpool. I didn't go anywhere. Andy went up there to Liverpool yesterday to catch up with Josh Taylor. Seems to kind of have that, as he alluded to, that fire back in his belly. I think he enjoyed himself after becoming undisputed champion against Jose Ramirez. And he claims at least to have overlooked Jack Catterall. He's since changed trainer. He feels like he's got the fire in his belly again. Think that's the right move, moving away from Ben Davison?
It's hard to say when you're not in the camp at any point, like apart from the little glimpses you get as press. But I remember at the time someone wrote, I can't remember exactly the context of it, but what had been wrong or what had been seemingly wrong with Tyson Fury in the fight against Otto Wallin. was almost exactly the same as how Taylor had looked, like slightly weaker and longer and lighter or whatever. And there were suggestions that maybe the way that he had been training with Ben Davison just wasn't optimal for him. Not bad, but there's fits, and sometimes it maybe didn't fit. I think it could be harsh on Davison, to be fair, but sometimes you just got to change it. And he's changed it for a reason. It's not, nobody's forced him to do it. Proof will be in the pudding. I like that as a alliance, though, with McInally. I think that could really work. And right now, if I was putting money on it, which I will do, I'll probably be backing Taylor to win that fight, because I feel like that was the worst night. That was his worst night. And maybe it was Catterall's best night. And that happened. Taylor, we know, like, right off Josh Taylor at your peril. Like, he is an unbelievably talented fighter, and not obviously his achievements are obscene, like, considering how long he's been a professional in terms of, what he's crammed into that record. What is he, 20-0?
19.
19-0, and what he's done. And again, no disrespect to Jack Catterall, but I feel like he's going to be 100 times better. And then it's going to be interesting to see what Jack Catterall can do with that.
And knowing what Taylor's like, I mean, he's a perfectionist. I've watched him do pads in the past and storm off in the middle of sort of a round of pads because he's got a combination wrong, and he's very much in his own head.
Would have hurt him. He
would have been, like, despite what he said in some of the interviews and stuff around the fight about he doesn't care, and he kind of played that bad guy role really well, and that villain, and really wound a lot of people up with it. He would have been really hurting with people thinking that he lost that fight, and people saying that he lost that fight. And obviously you're never going to condone, like, people DMing his family and stuff like that. And yeah, I just feel like Taylor's going to be a bit of a different animal in the rematch. Not necessarily mean that he's going to, obviously won the first fight, but in a very controversial decision. Jack Catterall, I think, will have to be better. But I always felt like that was going to be a tricky fight for Taylor. I felt like before then, the main problems that we'd see, he had that brilliant fight with Prograis, but that's two elite guys. But other than that, the fight that he most struggled in was Victor Postol. And Victor Postol was somebody who controlled the middle of the ring, that big lead hand. He's kind of like mini Klitschko with his lead hand. And he just forced Taylor to lunge in. And when he lunged in, he just take a half step back and just with the jab or with the right hand. And that's sort of what Catterall did, really. He was nice and patient in the middle of the ring and just waited for Taylor to commit. He was waiting, walked him into that left hand. So, yeah, I think Taylor will be trying to do what he did in the middle rounds of that fight, which is make it up close, personal, horrible.
That's what he does well. And it felt like what had happened with Ben Davison, it might not be because of Ben, but what had happened is he wasn't doing what he does well.
He was kind of looking for the long southpaw left hand, which has never really been his shot.
Like, put it on him. That's what you do, and that's what you're fucking great at, and that's how you're going to win this fight. And it only came in bursts. So I think if he does that, he wins the fight.
Andy, how do you see the rematch playing out?
I would back Taylor for the reasons that you've both come up with, which is that I think he will have been brooding over this, and by the time they get into the ring, he'll be fit to explode, basically. And in terms of showing people that wasn't his best self, which it definitely wasn't. I do think that Catterall would always be difficult for absolutely anybody, though, because technically he's at a high level, and temperament-wise, he's at a really high level.
Just unflappable.
As I mentioned before, he'll have a game plan and he'll go about it, and he just does loads of things well. He's got good feet. He never looks rushed. No one's going to beat him, I don't think, unless Taylor manages to do it really comprehensively. But I do, I've done quite a lot of Josh Taylor's fights. I think his career's been moved really, really well. I think the McGuigans did a great job with him. I think it was a real shame that relationship broke down, because Shane is a very good trainer, and I don't feel like them parting purely in terms of his boxing Taylor was ever going to be a good thing. And like I say, I don't want to get stuck into Ben Davison in any way, shape or form, but the performance against Catterall, I wouldn't imagine happening if he'd still been with McGuigan, just because they know each other. They know each other so well. But I do like the pairing with McNally and Declan O'Rourke as well, because when you talk to, like, Macklin, for example, Matt Macklin or Paul Smith, or guys of that age who were the same age as Joe McNally, he boxed for England when he was younger, and they all know him, and they all just say good things about him. And I liked what he did with Price. I remember him pulling him out of the fight against Kuzmin after 4 rounds because he had an injured bicep, and I think Price was going to box on, but McNally was no. we're not doing that. And you just think, wow, that's a
Bold.
bold call. And then,
I've read a really good interview with him in Boxing News. That was a good one as well.
yeah, and then against Chisora,
we spoke
Price
about
was going to continue, and he threw the towel on. I remember thinking that and just thinking, I rate that.
Yeah, backing himself.
I just need to unleash Taylor. I think there was a little bit too much kind of posturing and lining up his shots, and look, the way that he fights. I mean, I remember watching him box when he won the world title against Baranchik, and that was a brilliant fight.
God, it was good, wasn't
Brilliant fight.
So almost a bit too far that way, though.
Yeah, but I mean that's him,
Yeah,
and he can do it any which way you want. But the way that he's best at is getting up close, short to mid distance,
Yes,
catch and
exactly.
counter.
A guy like against Ramirez, where he dropped him with that brilliant uppercut, didn't he?
Yeah.
When he was getting on top of him in the middle rounds and giving him a beating. To be
Yeah,
honest.
and you could see Ramirez
The fight
looking
for
at him.
Undisputed was you don't see that often. And Ramirez is, he's a top level guy.
And he's a big, strong 140 pounder. He's used to doing it to other people.
That's
so when
it,
you've got this wiry Scottish nutcase
Yeah.
sticking it on you and sticking it on your manager,
Oh, mate,
Rick Meridian.
That week was so good, wasn't it? And he's got all the fans that, that was quality.
You had
And he was with
Baby
Dan
Ting
Lawrence.
running around as well.
Baby Ting was there for some reason. Dan Lawrence was there as well, got him super fit. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rematch. There's a lot of question marks over it.
I'm very much
It'll be good.
Very much looking forward to it as well. As I am the return of our next fighter, a forgotten world champion somewhat, Lawrence Okolie, on the 27th of February, the last time we saw him in action against Mikhail Sislak. Got the unanimous decision there, but it's been a while. I mean, I know Lawrence popped up and done some interviews in the last couple of days.
Yeah, he's not happy bunny.
No, didn't do one with me. But anyway, a less than stellar performance against Sislak, if you can remember it.
I was there. It was a Sunday night.
It was a Sunday night.
And it was weird because it almost didn't happen, or it didn't happen, but remember the roof came off the O2 because of Storm Uni.
Yeah,
That
oh
one.
God, fuck it.
Yeah.
Was that this year?
Yeah, I know. So that, and I remember being like, Sunday, who's going to go to that fight?
Polish
Honestly.
Talking about
But
a
that's
lot
what it
of
was.
Polish people,
and it was
mate.
amazing atmosphere in the end. Campbell Hatton was on the undercard. I can't remember who someone else was.
There was another fight on the undercard, which we'll come on to but anyway.
I know who it is. Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec. But Okolie, I'm trying to think what happened there. I mean, it was a good win.
He buzzed him
Sislak's
with a
decent.
right hand in the first round,
Yeah,
and
but
then that was as good as it got.
It was one of them where you think if Coley does this against anyone, he's going to win the fight, but it's not watchable, really, or at least he could be more watchable. And I remember afterwards being like, "Wow, you got to move him up to heavyweight." And I remember because we spoke to Eddie after, spoke to Lawrence, and you sort of thinking, "What's the story here? Like, what happens now? Are we just going to keep having these defences, or?" I'm trying to remember, is he mandatory Sislak? I think.
No, he was. Yeah. So he won the vacant WBO and he ended up having to box, Sislak as a mandatory.
Mo
afterwards,
Sislak.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about Breedis, weren't they? Like,
Yeah.
that was the
Oh,
fight.
he turned up just as Mario.
Oh,
yeah.
Worst trash talk of the year. He just turned up and it was like, who brought him?
I cannot understand. We spoke to Bradis the other week. He turned up at Alexandra
Yeah, he
Palace,
did,
remember?
yeah.
To watch the Mikhail Lawal versus David
Yeah,
Jamieson
Sunday.
fight.
It's another Sunday. He must just like Sunday. But I remember it was a DAZN test, I think, to basically see are people going to watch boxing on Sunday. I don't know. Maybe they ain't done it since.
Well, yeah. So I think the answer there is no.
Yeah.
But that was kind of Lawrence Okolie of the Matty Askin fight, of the Isaac Chamberlain fight, and it reared its ugly head there. I remember. I mean, you guys would have spoke to Lawrence over the years. Very kind of self-aware guy, I think, and he can be very. He's very matter of fact about things, and you can have a good conversation with him. I remember speaking to him after the Matty Askin fight, and I said, like, this is the second one of these stinkers that you've had. Will you be willing to change your style going forward? And he said, look, obviously it's an entertainment business, but it's about getting the win. He's like, and if every single one of my fights has to be like that to make sure that I get the win, then I'll do it. And I remember thinking at the time,
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, fair
You're
enough.
The one in there getting hit.
Yeah,
and
fair
there was
enough.
a bit of that against Sislak. It was like, that's what I mean. If he boxes like that, he's almost impossible to beat.
at cruiserweight.
At cruiserweight. So it's like, you might as well just do that.
That's exactly it, because, and I think he's got a kind of a default setting that he can use to win that other people just don't have, because he's so freakishly strong.
And awkward.
Yeah, and he can
And
just
the
grab
range
you
of
on
him.
the, yeah, exactly. He can, but he can just grab you and wrestle you about on the inside for 12 rounds and beat you. And people don't want to watch it, but I don't think there's a single fighter in the cruiserweight division that he couldn't do that to. And when you've got that there as an option, it's hard not to take it.
Yeah.
Because I just remember, do you remember when he won the European title against
Ngannou?
Ngannou. I remember talking to Ngannou before that fight. He's training with Dominic
Ingle,
up in Sheffield, and he was saying, you know, I'm so strong, you know, I'm going to be stronger than a Coley. And I just thought, you're not, mate.
Yeah, you better say
You're just
He was
not.
quite a small cruiser as well.
And then you watch the fight, and in the first 30 seconds, Coley made it clear to Ngannou that he wasn't stronger than him. And at that point, he's immediately fucked.
Yeah.
And you could see it on his face. It was just like, oh, wow. Like, this bloke looks like some kind of like smaller version of Deontay Wilder. Like, he's like stick thin. But he's freakishly.
He's got he's got stick thin arms and legs, but his torso is solid.
Yeah, it's like
he's a bit. Yeah, he's a
cheese grater.
Yes.
Like Henry Akinwande.
Yeah, he has got that cheese grater. I like it. He has got that kind of really strange big man physique. I think he's got a size 15 shoe.
He's got a big old foot.
Yeah, I think he's a big, and he's another one we were kind of talking about. Josh Taylor. He's another one who's now no longer training with Shane McGuigan. He's out based in Dubai. We are, of course.
There, really? He moved there.
Yeah, I was talking to someone at the weekend at this IBA thing I was doing, who's been doing a bit of training with him out in Dubai. Tony Davis, who was a GB coach, now kind of with Bahrain, and he was just over there, and they know each other obviously. But I think did he not say in one of these interviews he's done recently, obviously not to you, but that he will be training with Shane for his next fight, but that will mean coming back here obviously because Shane can't go there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
If I moved to Dubai, I would hope for my trainer to go out there and do my camp with me, and that's not going to happen with Shane.
No, it's not. And he's got a busy gym of fighters, and he's got Daniel Dubois, Adam Azim, who's now, of course, getting more and more attention, is now becoming a main event fighter. He's got
CBS.
5 fights, 6 years. Chris Billum-Smith, who boxed last weekend.
Scotney,
Great performance.
Yeah, maybe.
There's no way he can do it.
No, he can't. I don't know. We spoke to Shane a couple of weeks ago on camera where he said, you know, the door's open. If we can work it out, we'll work it out. But, you know, I also know Shane well enough to know that, and not just Shane, but any kind of elite level coach is not going to not be there for the whole camp and then just do a couple of weeks on the end. That's the sort of thing that you get with
Robert Garcia.
Yes, but sort of what I was going to say, the sort of thing that you get with a trainer at a certain stage of their career, I suppose, who's kind of where they'll come in and do the last. Manny Stewart used to do it all the time. He used to come in for the last week or two of camp. Angelo Dundee used to turn up on the night and just do the corner. But
Shane might end up doing that himself.
He's not going to do that
years.
in 10-15 years. Yeah, but like at this stage of his career, you've been to the gym. Like he pads all of the fighters himself. He likes to feel the shots. He likes to tweak and kind of be, as most coaches are. I mean, McCracken, when he sees a fighter working a heavy bag, it's every other shot. It's do this different, it's do that different. Not having that there, I don't think will necessarily work, which would be a huge shame. Barring the Sislak fight, I think there was some obvious improvements from a Coley, certainly from the dark days of the Askin and Chamberlain fight. And if he is to go elsewhere, I think it would be a shame. But it's boxing, isn't it? These things happen all the time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he does because he's an incredibly bright individual, and it's all come unbelievably fast for him, not for any reason other than his talent, but he had, 18 fights as an amateur or whatever. He did as an amateur and that, and then obviously he's done it all quickly now. It seems like a man in a rush, and I don't know, it's been disappointing of the stuff that you've heard and the sort of dispute that he's now having with Eddie, and I can see it from both sides. I can understand why Eddie would be frustrated that this is all happening, but equally Lawrence the fighter and the way he was talking about it, I hope they iron it out. I don't really know how they're going to do that.
No one's winning.
Nobody's winning. And Lawrence isn't fighting, and we're not seeing it. And you sort of, his big problem, I say problem, but like Bradis was the fight to make at cruiserweight, and then he went and got beat. Bradis got beat by Battaglia, so then you think, okay, maybe just move him up. But because I think he'd be a force at heavyweight, a Coley. I really do. Like, we spoke about before, Lawrence Coley against Dylan White. Who wouldn't want to see that?
The speed going up.
Yeah, and what you say that, Andy, that like he could always revert. It'd be interesting to see how that works at heavyweight. Like, is he strong enough and awkward enough to neutralise people and nullify people? Maybe not. But I'd love to see it. Because you sort of think, what's he hanging around at cruiserweight for? He can't just box Sislaks every sort of 9 months.
And making the weight's not going to be any easier.
No, and I don't think he'd like that because he's got other things going. He's moved to Dubai. He's got a nice house there. He's like making rap videos and stuff. You think, does he
opening
really
a vegan McDonald's?
Yeah. I don't know what he's going to do trainer-wise. I know he's doing some stuff with Malik Scott out there, but I think that was just coincidence because he was there with Usyk. But who knows? Like maybe that's something, and for a camp you would go and base yourself. What I'm not sure he would do is move to Dubai, buy a house. I know he's got family. I guess his old dear's still in Hackney and stuff, so it's not like he wouldn't be coming back. But I don't see him coming back for like a 12-week camp and base himself in London or somewhere else with a trainer. I don't know, but I haven't spoke to him. Some people have, but yeah, I don't know. It's a disappointing one. I thought it was a decent win. Sislak's a good opponent, and it was a good night, but it felt like, okay, now we're going to go and do something special now, and it hasn't happened.
No, it certainly hasn't. And whatever happened there, we hope that there's a quick resolution for all concerned, because we want to see our fighters in the ring. Our world champions. We don't have many of them. We just lost one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, the fight that you were struggling to think of on that undercard, Jordan Gill. 9th round knockout of Karim Garcia. And now we're going to go on to later on our knockouts of the year and things like that.
Yeah.
That was sort of like
that early hands off.
Yeah.
Danny Williams, Mark Potter levels of kind of.
That was obscene. It was the maddest thing I've ever seen.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It was the number one. There's 2 moments where I've stood up and audibly like made a sound covering boxing. When you cover it, you shouldn't really be, like fanned like that. You should just try and keep it together. The one was my old mate George Groves when he dropped Froch in the first round. It was like, fuck. But this was another level, because not only was the knockout shot like stupendous and like from out of nowhere, but he was on his ass. Like he was fucked. I was thinking, pull him out. Like everyone's going, pull him out.
Yeah.
And he's in his corner.
Because he had no equilibrium, did he?
That's the only way he could do it. And Caldwell's speaking to him. I'm thinking, how is he not pulling him out? Like David Caldwell's like one of the best coaches in the country. Just very intelligent, he would never be brave. I'm thinking, what's happening here? And then you notice he's just talking to him up through the ropes. He's saying, like, you're fine. And then he's just sort of looking for it. We've had him on the pod, Jordan, and he's talked us through this, and he's looking for it, but at the same time, he's still getting hit back. He'd been DDT'd earlier in the fight. He's all over the shop. Both ears have gone. I think his knee's gone. And then just a right hand from out of nowhere. And obviously, Garcia is pouring forward, and therefore more susceptible for that, and it was just like perfect chemistry.
It's almost like slow motion, wasn't it? He hit him and it was like
yeah. And I think it's in Dark Trade, Don McRae's book, that he says what we're all watching really when we watch boxing is for that moment, really at the heart of it, the essence of it when we're watching as fans is for that moment when it goes like that. Like whether you confess to that being it or whether you even realise that's it. And that moment was exactly what he wrote about.
That is what makes boxing
unique.
You can't be 10-0 down.
Yeah, we've spoken about this exact
thing.
Turn
it around with that one punch. It's the ultimate. It is what people watch it for. It's. I'd be totally happy to admit that. It's just that it's wild.
Yeah,
there is absolutely nothing like it in any other sport, and it was incredible. I mean, really just amazing. And I've covered quite a lot of Jordan's fights, and things are kind of, he's had an interesting career because he was going absolutely nowhere, and then he signed with Dave, and things started moving in the same way, exactly the same way as they did for his big pal Lee Wood, not that long afterwards. And then he just thought, he's not been found out, but this isn't going well, and he's getting a hiding. Like you're saying, he's got to be. There's no way Dave lets him out for another round if it carried on as it did, and then he did that. It was tremendous.
Roy the Rovers.
It was unbelievable scenes. Moving into March, we're getting through the months.
March is a good one.
The start of March, it's decent. Yeah, start of March. Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez against a man that we spoke about earlier, Julio Cesar Martinez, stepped up. And got beat 12 rounds to 0 by the great man Roman Gonzalez. Just another win over another top fighter for Chocolatito.
There was a bit of a tour de force, wasn't it? And I remember a lot of people were picking him to look, or at least there was that question mark. It's like, but he's got this big, strong puncher, and can he stand up to it? And it was just like amazing to watch. But shame Barry's not here, because I think Barry probably passed out watching that. He could have talked us through it, but that was, it was like, he's still Choc. He's still Choc. after all these years.
And unbelievable heart as well, to be fair. You give credit to Julio Cesar Martinez or Eddie Reynoso in his corner, who after 6 rounds he was going, and Eddie Reynoso going, "You're not tired," and he was going, "I am." But he went in there and he took his licks for the second half of that fight, which is Martinez. I don't know. Sometimes you get these kind of wild characters, and then you do wonder what happens when they face the adversity. But he really showed some steel that night.
Yeah, he did, and he's had a bit of an underwhelming year, to be honest, which is a shame because at the start of the year, I mean, I think we kind of all picked out a fight we really wanted to see as him against Sonny Edwards, and that hasn't happened. And the fact that it hasn't happened, kind of, we don't really know the ins and outs of it for real, but it reflects more poorly on Martinez.
Yeah.
It doesn't reflect in any way poorly on Sonny Edwards, but it doesn't look great from a Martinez point of view. But yeah, he did. He showed us some minerals in that fight, and you're right. I love those. I love those bits in the corner where you know, the fight. You see what's happening. The trainer's attempting some reverse psychology, and the fighter's just like, "Mate, I'm the one in there. You don't need to tell me. Try and give me some alternative version of what's happening. I'm well aware of what's going on."
I actually watched that fight with Sonny Edwards because quite often I'm the only loser that I know who's up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning to watch flyweights box. And
your work rate for still getting up and staying up through the night is
Big up your missus.
Right up there, because I don't do it much anymore, to be honest. I tend to catch up after the event, but
it just shows how thoroughly unfulfilling the rest of my life is, I think. No, joking.
You said it.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't watch this. She won't watch it anyway. She'll tell me she will. But yeah, so I actually watched that with Sonny.
Put it out at 4 a.m, then she won't watch it.
My wife said to me once, I think I said to her at one point, I don't know what it was about, but said, "Oh, did you see that thing on Sky Sports News?" And she literally just said to me, "I'm a normal functioning human being." Yeah.
You know, it's like the times where you speak to somebody, like, I don't know, like just a mate who's like a casual sports fan. "You watching boxing at the weekend?" He's like, What boxing? What? No, just like the main event then, not the undercard." No, mate. I don't know. I was doing normal things on my Saturday night. But yeah,
I do still pity them though. You know,
Yeah.
they'll say, no, I didn't, and seem unaware of what was happening. I look at them and just think, I feel sorry for you.
Poor bastard.
I feel sorry for you.
You miss Jordan
Your
Gill,
life is
Ring
empty.
Girlfriend.
You've got no passion or joy in your existence.
You haven't had KFC for weeks.
You haven't had KFC for weeks.
Can't even say it.
Not acquainted with the Colonel anymore. I mean, this is a shambles.
The Colonel's not on my Christmas card list this year, man. It's not doing me too many favors. But yeah, I actually watched it again with Sonny Edwards, and every time I watched this fight with Samuel Carmona as well with Sonny on FaceTime. And every time Martinez boxes, he always wants him to win, second round knockout, blow him away. He's that type of...
Oh, yeah, he wants that fight.
He wants that fight. He wants that fight to look as amazing as possible. And I remember Sonny saying at the time, you know, he's going to quit here. He's going to quit. He's lost another round. He's getting hurt. He's going to quit. I remember Sonny's just sort of, fair play to him. He stayed in there, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, he didn't quite get that third round knockout of Chocolatito. That would have made Edwards versus Martinez an even bigger fight. Speaking of big fights, and we spoke earlier about Jordan Gill versus Karim Gurfi as the knockout of the year. I'm going to come to Taylor first.
I know what you're going to say.
Because the following week from Roman Gonzalez versus Julio Cesar Martinez on DAZN, we saw Lee Wood and Michael Conlan with an absolute firefight for Conlan's WBA regular. He is now the WBA featherweight champion, putting all of that regular and super nonsense to bed. Putting that to bed, rather. Been a long year. Anyway. But a spectacular win, a 12th round knockout in you mentioned Roy the Rovers stuff earlier with Karim Gurfi, and I think that was another one that fits into that.
Yeah, can we reveal that's my fight of the year? cut that bit out. No, I mean, it's up there. It's in the running for fight of the year. But that fight was, I mean, just this, you could go, like, just the walk-in, like, from that moment, like,
it's a great arena.
Oh my god! And like,
I love that arena.
Conlan comes out,
8,000-9,000. It's packed. It's
so good.
It's
yeah.
Because
the O2 when it's massive, it's vast. But when you go just back to the walk-ins, you've got Conlan there, and it's like green everywhere. And he's obviously the away fighter, but he's also got all the fans there. That was just from that moment, you think, okay. He comes out to Jimi Hendrix, he's doing the air guitar. You think, oh, fuck, this is proper. And then the first round. Like the last second of the first round, and he drops him. Conlan drops him. And it's that, from a southpaw stance, it's like the left hook. He landed it, honestly, about 10 times around. It's crazy. But, yeah, then it develops. Lee Wood works his way back into the fight, and you think, but surely he can't do this. Conlan's still pretty tidy. Both stances. Wood goes southpaw for a bit. And then the finish was not nice, actually. And I remember watching it and thinking, has he even caught him with anything there? And the other angle you see really...
It's that short right hand on the temple,
And then the cuffing left hook sort of sends him through the ropes. And obviously that changes the celebrations as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was brilliant. I went down to the gym, to the Booth gym, not that long after it had happened. And I remember thinking, God, that must have been a real hard one to take, because I just never really felt like Conlan did very much wrong.
No, he didn't
at all. And I did think he was a little bit unlucky as well, because he had the knockdown called against him at the end of the 11th or near the end of the 11th. I thought it was knockdown. And I didn't really. I thought it was 50-50. Yeah. I thought it could have been called or it could not have been called. And I think if it hadn't have been, then Wood's tail wouldn't have been up in the way that it needed to be to get the. I thought, to get the finish. So I just thought he just maybe he wasn't. I'm not saying Lee Wood was lucky. He wasn't lucky. Knockouts aren't lucky, but it was fine margins that night, wasn't it? At that real high level, and I thought just away from home, like that little rub of the green that Conlan needed that would have got him over the line. It was a 50.
So close.
It was a 50-50 call.
The 12th round stoppage as well,
if you like, and he didn't get it, and Wood did, and then the wind's in his sails. Then and he went after him, and he did what he did. But it was I love that arena, because I saw Butte Froch there, and that was absolutely mega. But it's tight to the ring. Everybody piles in from the city centre after they've been down the boozer for all day.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere is just brilliant.
Yeah. Even if that first round goes an extra 30 seconds.
It probably stops.
Yeah. I mean, that was a beautiful shot.
Oh, my God.
He set him up perfect. The whole round, he set him up.
He lands that shot constantly throughout the fight. That backhand is kind of over.
Like a sort of,
but from a southpaw, it's like a backhand hook, and he just couldn't miss with it. But one thing I would say about Lee Wood, we had a bit of a question over Ben Davison and Josh Taylor. That connection between those two is amazing,
fantastic.
And what Lee Wood does well is when he gets hurt, like he got hurt by Reece Mould when he knocked him out. Yeah. He's got something inside him that a bit like Froch, where it's something where he might go down, but he's back up again. Like he's made of something, and he's obviously a big puncher. He's such an exciting fighter. Someone who lost to Jazza Dickens like a few years ago. And it rightly so has been elevated. It's never nice when people get made like full champion without fighting. I mean, it's probably nice. Maybe it's not nice for him actually, because but because he had that fight and he did that fight, it's almost like he's earned it.
Yeah, that's your rubber stamp, as opposed to beating like sort of Kanzu, who was still an unknown quantity, in Eddie's Garden.
Yeah, like, but being regular for that as well. Like even then.
Yeah.
But even then, like with all the kind of the discussions around Leo Santa Cruz, is he going to box at featherweight? Is he not? And like he was kind of like an in between, sort of like people were like, yeah, he's a regular champion, but I'm going to give him like the benefit of the doubt there. But having that win that night in that fashion, that really was a champion making performance.
Amazing fight.
So we're gonna.
Shame it never happened. The Lara fight never happened.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with that.
No, I feel like
I'd imagine now
and Feb, but probably not Lara.
I think they still do the Wood-Warrington fight.
Yeah,
I think that still does enough business. Nottingham versus Leeds, why not? I mean, I tweeted about this yesterday. It's kind of a cruel twist of fate in a sense of you can't unify with a regular belt and an IBF title, as Carl Frampton and Scott Quigg found out.
Yeah.
Which is why Guillermo Redondo just magically was not champion for one fight, and then all of a sudden he was elevated after the fight. But now he's...
We've seen that a few times, haven't we?
Yeah.
It happened in the Super Series as well with Breedis and Dorticos.
Yeah.
But he's been elevated, but Warrington.
He's been elevated, and when Warrington's lost. So I still think that they do that fight. I think Wood probably has a run out. Maybe Warrington gets a confidence builder at some point early next year, and they look to try and do that somewhere outdoors next summer. I think that still does big business. Speaking of Josh Warrington, he became a 2-time featherweight champion of the world and a 2-time winner over Kiko Martinez on the 26th of March. Bit of a strange fight, got his jaw broken. But got the job done and became a 2-time world champion.
He got a bit of stick though, didn't he, for the use of the head in that fight?
He's getting more and more stick for it, but arguably using his head more than he has done earlier in his career.
Yeah, but broke his jaw, and it really affected him. He said, sometimes like you hear boxers talk about, I broke my jaw, I did this, and it's like water off a duck's back for him. But that one sounded like quite a bad one. Obviously, it kept him out for ages as well.
Yeah,
but it just shows these men are like different, aren't they? That then not only has he got a broken jaw, but he's still having to fight with them, not just fight and survive, but then win the fight. Yeah, and Kiko, I mean, he's come again since, but
Beat Jordan Gill.
yeah. So that, I mean, it was nice, wasn't it? Because Warrington, when he vacated, didn't he, to try and get a bigger fight, and then ended up boxing Lara in a non-title fight, getting stopped in COVID. It was all just a bit strange and like missteps. So then to get an opportunity to go and win it again, or win a belt again, was good, and he did the business.
Yeah, we've spoken about it, haven't we, Andy? Like on several occasions, and seemingly every time we talk about it, the story gets worse. And he's just lost the IBF title, and quite. I know Sean O'Hagan and everybody else around the team felt like he'd won the fight. I didn't. I felt like Lopez was a pretty clear winner of that fight. But yeah, a couple of years to forget for Warrington, albeit a good win against Kiko Martinez in March.
Yeah, but at a cost. At a cost with the injury, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I can't think of anyone for whom COVID was worse than. It's been very, very tough for him since. Be interested to see what he decides to do now, but yeah, he had to tough that one out. He had to dog that one out against somebody in Martinez he's kind of maybe long since become one of your second favourite fighters, if you like.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Because he's just guaranteed entertainment.
Sort of like having a second football team, like supporting Martinez, isn't it? Well, yeah, but I look out for his results, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it.
I had coffee with Josh Warrington randomly, I don't know, probably 3 months after that, and I remember him saying to me, he's like,
it for a straw.
He said he couldn't bite an apple, and he's like, and he was told by the doctor that by that time he would have been able to do it. And he said that it was kind of not like depressing him or troubling him, but he's like, I thought I'd be back. He's like, made me realise I'm not 22 anymore, 23 anymore.
Well, that's it. You'd worry, wouldn't you? Because it's pretty fragile, isn't it? And he used to be a dental technician, and he maybe knows a bit more about this stuff than we do. And you begin to wonder, I'm getting a bit older. Maybe
the doctor said to him,
the end is nigh.
Doctor said to him, you should be able to spar in 2 or 3 weeks. I remember him saying to me, he's like, I don't feel ready. And he's like, and I've never felt like that before. Yeah. And you just kind of like, I guess it's sort of realising your own mortality a little bit. And yeah, he's
exactly that.
That was the longest layoff of his career, his longest gap he's ever had in his career in the end. So you're right, it came at a cost, and maybe that was partly why he didn't perform the other night, but or a few weeks ago. But what it did make me think is, because we spoke to him in the build-up for preview stuff, and he sort of mentioned that thing about retirement, or at least he's kind of, questions are coming at him about that sort of stuff, where before they hadn't. And I remember when he boxed Frampton had been talking about retirement, and Warrington had used that as a stick to beat him with, saying, well, if you're talking about your slippers, your head's not in the game. He was saying this. So he's acutely aware of what it means to, as soon as you start looking beyond it, you're finished, and you're going to get beat, you get found out. And that's exactly what happened with Frampton. And at that point, obviously, Warrington nowhere near retirement. He's in the the peak of his powers. But now Warrington is like near that bit where I think he'll come again, but like, he has every right to walk away now and go. He didn't get the Vegas fight. He didn't get that stuff that he craves, but he's achieved it all. I don't know what financially you'd assume.
You'd imagine he's done pretty well.
Yeah. So it's funny because boxing time doesn't wait for any boxer, does it? It's like you're gone. And I thought this the other day when Fabio Wardley was like doing his photos with his British title, and Joshua was the other side of the ring, and I remember when Joshua had just won his British title and was there, and it's like it goes like that. Yeah. Because now Wardley goes like that way, and that moment is gone forever. That will never happen again. You're gonna just keep elevating, or you get beat and you go another way. But it's such a fast and transient sport that, before you know it, someone like Josh Warrington, who you think, he's one of our established boxers, it's like, actually, no, he's actually mid-30s and he's done. Yeah. He's gone. You don't even think about him anymore.
And that's something you definitely get more aware of on our side of the fence as we get older. Yeah. I'm older than you.
And now you're interviewing kids.
And you're seeing people finish their careers. Like, I've seen it a few times now, but that cycle for you is like newer than you two, I think.
He's older than me.
And the first one of those that made me really think, wow, like I've seen that all the way through was George and DeGale.
And DeGale, yeah.
And just thinking, when I got to the end of that, I just thought, right, they're done now. Yeah. And I'm hoping I've got another 30 years of this. Yeah. So you're going to see it loads and loads of times. Yeah, I think as we all get older, it'll just, that cycle for the athletes in our eyes, in our heads, will just get quicker and quicker and quicker.
It does.
John,
Yeah.
we're getting old. But anyway, time waits for no man, and it certainly waits for no podcast. So, April the 9th, Gennady Golovkin, TKO 9 winner over Ryota Murata. Thought he overcame a bit of ring rust there. We spoke about this.
I hated this fight because it scuppered my chances of Eubank.
Yeah.
That's my theory, was that he was going to box Murata.
And that's,
this fight wouldn't happen. He boxed Murata, win the world title. So
Going to be sat here with his
Sunday.
I love Eubank.
midweek. I think it was a midweeker, maybe.
No. The 9th,
Definitely a
the
weekend.
9th would have been a Saturday.
It was
Was
in
it?
Japan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They love a midweek.
They must
fight.
they
Oh,
must
it
have
would have been
changed
the
it around
afternoon.
for
We're a bit afternoon though.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
They must have done something to change it around for US TV. Or
Yeah,
they
but
wouldn't
it
have
wasn't
cared.
in evening.
No, I don't think they're bothered.
Japan, because Murata's a massive name out there in broadcast.
I think it
can't
was like
remember.
lunchtime job.
I did the schedule about 20 minutes before we started. I didn't put the broadcasters down.
I forgot your Christmas jumper as well.
I did, yeah. But anyway,
Yeah.
Gennady Golovkin versus Ryota Murata.
I think it was like it was kind of he overcame some adversity, didn't he? And it was kind of horses for course. It was kind of what you were maybe not what you were expecting, but like everyone knew that Murata would give it a go, and that Golovkin's getting long in the tooth. And does he carry, or is his power quite as devastating, or even are his opponents that sort of fearful anymore? And as it turned out, he did the business in the end, but it was straight after that when everyone's going, well, Canelo's going to stop him, Canelo's going to stop him. And you thought, well, he's never even been dropped.
It was weird, wasn't it, how people used Golovkin winning a world title unification away from home pretty comfortably as evidence that he was washed.
Yeah, that he's done.
Yeah.
But the weight was mad, wasn't it? Remember the photos of the...
At the weigh-in, he looked about 75 years old, didn't he? And he had that like big long coat as well, so he looked like he
I
was...
thought people had done put him through an app, like an agent app. He looked like fucking Gandalf without a beard. It was quality, but yeah. And anyway, and then it looked... that's how it turned out. He looked like someone who had struggled at the weight and was getting old, and it was all getting difficult for him, and that's how it transpired.
yeah.
But you're right, he won the fight, didn't he? He stopped him in the end.
Yeah. About halfway through as well. It wasn't that,
The 9th round he stopped him,
yeah.
But he started to really get on top of him. I think after the first 4 or 5 rounds, Murata kind of did what Murata does really. He come forward, threw a load of punches. But I think Murata had been out for like 3 years or something before that fight. Obviously COVID kind of impacted on that as well. But everybody was talking about Gennady Golovkin's activity, while Murata had sort of been sitting in his lounge chair for the last 3.5 years as well, and I think it showed on the night. I won't spend too much time on that because we do have to try and get through this. The following week we saw Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas. In my opinion, Errol Spence's, I think, best performance of his professional career, certainly up there with that win over Kell-Brook all those years ago in Sheffield, and did the business against Yordenis Ugas deck.
Yeah, but now whenever I talk about Errol Spence, it's sad that was one fight of the year. And that was, I'm trying to think, like he boxed like twice in 3 years or something. But what is remarkable is that, as opposed to someone like Gary Russell Jr., is that he was so good on the night. And obviously Ugas was sort of high, like on a high. He did the business, Spence, and it was a good. He has to be in contention for Trainer of the Year, Derek James. And remember that after the fight, he was straight in his ear. I remember he was saying like, don't party too hard or something. Can you remember that? He like in the ring, like clearly quite performative of him to say that in that moment when all the cameras are on him, because he's probably, I don't know, it's a bit like what you were saying earlier, Andy, where is he doing it right or is he doing it wrong? Because he's making all this money, people have still got him £3-4 pound for pound, but he's boxing so little. He's a boxer who doesn't box, but when he did and when he does, people, I don't know, can you remember, were people picking against him in that fight? I still think he was pretty heavy favourite.
Yeah, people were favouring him.
I mean, Ugas a couple of years ago, no one would have backed him to win that fight. But
no, he had that win over Pacquiao, which kind of flattened, which of course was a replacement for Spence.
Yeah, and that elevated the opinion of him. But maybe you're right. Probably the best performance of his career. But yeah, it's just all shrouded a bit in disappointment for me now, Spence.
Andy?
Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts too. I mean, he as soon as you think of Spence, you just think of Crawford, and you kind of roll your eyes and curse them for not having made that fight, basically, which is, I mean, who knows who's really to blame for that. But I just really, really like Spence as a fighter. I think he's brilliant to watch. Until recently, I always had him as clearly above Crawford in the welterweight rankings based on resumes and what they've actually done, the pair of them. It's got closer in recent times. And I just remember commentating on this fight against Sean Porter, and it's still up there as one of the best ones I've
Yeah, that was a great
done,
fight.
Yeah.
because it was just a brilliant fight, and it'd just be such a shame if we don't get to see him in some absolute blockbusters before he.
Yeah, we've got to see that Crawford fight, haven't we? And I don't know.
But have we? I would say
Okay,
at this point it's
who's
less likely than it is likely.
Well, yeah, I mean, now you've seen Crawford this past weekend, whatever. Who cares? We've seen him knock out David Avanesian, but he got paid between 5 and 10 million, depending on who you listen to and what you believe. Seems to be he's kind of gone the way of putting his career into his own hands. So who knows? I mean, he was talking about fighting Errol Spence in London the other day, which I thought was insanity. Really, I had no.
That just tells you how far away it is, because it's still just pie in the sky. So when he left Top Rank, I thought, sweet, this is it then.
Yeah.
You're going to sign with PBC. They might give him like a Danny Garcia or something, and then he'll fight Spence.
But no.
No.
So somewhere,
too easy for
somewhere is behind the fact that it's not happening. I don't know who it is, but yeah. And the problem is that Ugas is a good win. Like, it's a good welterweight fight between a credible opponent and Errol Spence. Like, it's good, it's solid, but it's just not what we want. Not what I want.
Same with Spence Furman.
Exactly
which
that.
Looks like it's going to be next for Errol Spence.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah, great, good. Yeah, watch it, but you kind of already know who Furman wins that. It's a massive upset.
Yeah.
Same as it would have been really with your Dennis Ugas, albeit on the back of a win over Manny Pacquiao. If he'd have beat Errol Spence, everyone would have been shocked.
Was that in April?
It was in April.
Seems like a long time ago.
So what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to do half of the year, and we're going to finish the other half of the year on Thursday.
Tasty.
But anyway, let's carry on.
So switching me out for Barry Jones.
We got to get him and talk about something.
Not bad.
At the end of
I'm the constant. You two as constant.
Yeah.
Then people can just kind of make their judgment as to which half is better.
Oh, well, we already know, mate, don't we? There we go. Yeah, get in the comments.
Half of the year, isn't it?
Do you like TV's Andy Clark or DAZN bets, Barry Jones? But anyway, moving on. Shout out Bet365. Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte was the following week. That feels like, again, from another lifetime. 94,000 people at Wembley Stadium packed in to see Tyson Fury really dominate Dillian Whyte, I felt, and not really look like he necessarily needed to get out of second gear. Andy, going to come to you first. Did you expect the fight to be as one-sided as it was?
Not originally, but then, strangely enough, when I saw Dillian Whyte waiting in the ring whilst Fury was ring walking, I all of a sudden thought, oh no, because Dillian was doing some southpaw shadow boxing, and I thought to myself, he's not going to, is he? And then he did and let go with the big overhand right a couple of times, and that was kind of it. And it's always easy to criticise, and I think Fury always has been, always will be, much better ability-wise than Dillian, but he just couldn't really do anything with him at all. And I would say I was kind of disappointed in him, because you need to always give props to the winner. And this is what you were talking about earlier, where you feel like somebody might have underperformed in Taylor, and then you kind of concentrate on what they didn't do, and you don't give Catterall enough credit, and all the rest of it. It can happen the other way around. And I thought we had some of that with the Chisora fight, where we just concentrate on how one-sided it was and how disappointing it was. But it's always worth asking yourself, could anyone else have done that to Chisora or Dillian Whyte, or is Fury that much better than everybody else? Again, it was kind of like it was an event. It was a spectacle at the end of it, because they got the crowd at Wembley that they said they would get, that people seemed to doubt that they would get. BT did a spectacular job with it, with the ring walks and everything else. Again, there was a little delay where somebody, I think White, maybe didn't want to come out of his dressing room on time, and I love all that shit, because it just you can speculate wildly at ringside as to what that's about.
Or not ringside.
Yeah.
As the case was.
And it was, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But Dillian Whyte was never at any point of the fight in it, was he?
No, he wasn't. Dec, how about you? How did you see the fight from your vantage point?
Yeah, I thought when he came out in Southpaw, it just, and obviously then second round just went orthodox again. It was like, has he got a plan here? Like,
it didn't look like
no.
a plan.
And then you think, he's waited so long for it. Like, we've heard for so long how long this has taken and that, and you think, this is the moment, and then it didn't happen. Nothing happened. But then you got to think, not only is Tyson Fury much better than him and much better than all heavyweights, we would say, I would say, but he also then happens to be 6'9" and have this massive reach and weight advantage. So then it's like, it's an impossible task, and that's no disrespect to Dylan or any of Fury's opponents.
That's it.
But it's like, it was kind of then what you'd expected. I thought what he might do, but again, this is speaking as someone who's not in the ring with Tyson Fury, but I thought he'd just go for broke, or just go for it. But he kind of didn't go for anything. Or at least it felt like that. And it might just be Fury, that's what he does. He nullifies you and takes over. But it was a massive event, but the fight was like a non-event. And then the stoppage, it was a big uppercut, but he kind of then pushes him over. So like, it was all a bit kind of, it wasn't clear. And then he's saying, oh, well, he pushed me and it's not legit. He's kind of, everyone's climbed
Puts like a real dampener on an event that wasn't really.
Yeah. It wasn't, it didn't need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those where, I don't know, we'll look back on these years probably of the, it was at Wembley and the 94,000 people turned out.
Yeah, I realise how lucky you are.
Yeah, and it was a world heavyweight title fight between two Brits in front of all these people. It's an amazing event, and then you get this big clinical finish as well. I just think Tyson Fury is another league to basically everyone, and that's what happens.
And I think as well, like that fight against Dillian and to a lesser extent the one against Chisora, because Chisora, you look at the records, him and Dillian, they're not really that kind of comparable. But what they also show is like how good is Deontay Wilder?
Yeah.
Because throughout the previous few years, there were people around who thought that Dillian Whyte could beat Deontay Wilder. And there were people around who make comparisons between all sorts of people based on nothing really, just as to what they may or may not have done against common opponents, which is never a great yardstick. But you just look at the performances that Wilder gave in that first and third fight against Fury, particularly the third fight after what happened in the second. And that for me is why I would probably put him at number 2 in my rankings. Never mind Usyk's got unified titles. Ooh. Fury is the absolute number 1. And look what he did.
Yeah, dropped him 4 times in 3 fights. But yeah, I from my 2 penneth worth on the fight really was, I think in recent years, White has kind of gone away from what he's been good at, which is that junkyard dog slinging shots here, there and everywhere. I mean, even the first Povetkin fight, which he boxed well, he lost that fight by giving away shots to Povetkin and trying to catch and counter. Like, I mean, if you ever speak to Dillian, which I haven't for a while, then he talks about, James Toney and like being a student of the sport and learning. He had Harold Knight in the corner for that and stuff. You just kind of think like, that's not what you are. You're kind of a junkyard dog, smash mouth brawler, get in your face. And obviously it's easier said than done against Tyson Fury with his big long reach and what have you. But coming out southpaw and trying to kind of, I don't know, outfox him, I guess. Yeah, I just don't, that's not what you've ever been good at. You've never won a fight that way.
But what I'm really curious about, and this is a question for the pair of you, is that we've been at this a long time now, and you know that athletes, they can never admit whilst they're active to any real form of insecurity or defeatism or going into a fight feeling that they can't win. But do you feel like it's possible that Fury might have that kind of hold over, not someone like Usyk, but the rest of the division almost, whereby fighters might look at him and just think, I can't beat this guy.
I know what you're saying. I think that is far more prevalent in boxing than you might think, because boxers would never admit it. Yeah. But I don't think Dylan Whyte at any point thought there's no way I can win this fight. I think he
would have thought at some point he'd have caught up with him with a left hook.
Yeah, and like that's why Whyte has achieved what he has, is because he's maybe that is a delusion. And, and actually it turned out to be that totally delusional that he might win that fight. What we should point out at this point as well is after the fight he left Javier Miller and Harold Knight and got a new trainer. So like that suggests he knows that they got it wrong on the night, and that's what it looked like. But I don't know what that plan was. Yeah,
and also I think I said this in the lead up to the fight as well. I felt like White, who does, he is an astute guy. If you talk to him about the sport, probably looked at Fury and thought, I'm going to need to make sure I get paid a lot of money for this fight. Like, obviously he wants to fight for the WBC title, but that's a hard fight. Like, I feel like for all of Deontay Wilder's murderous punching power and his ability to render a man unconscious like that, you would look at him and think, oh, well, I can do this and I can get him there. And like, there's holes and there's gaps and stuff. Whereas if you're looking at Fury, even on the back of the Wilder, the third Wilder fight, you'd think, okay, well, I hit him with a shot and get up. Yeah. And you just think like,
that's what I mean.
Yeah. So
what you reckon White maybe thought that?
I don't know if he'd have gone in there thinking he can't win.
It's a stretch to kind of say that, and you know, I would always kind of a little rule is that I wouldn't say something like here that I wouldn't be happy to say to someone's face, and I'm not sure if I would be happy to say it to Dillian's face for fear of, you know, if I, you know,
I'm sure he thinks he beat you.
It's not sure he'd draw 94,000.
That's the delusion again, isn't it? But I just think with someone like Fury, because it's heavyweight and you can have this massive size difference, which obviously you can't have in other divisions, and with him being so good as well, I just think he might have that kind of hex over people now where they don't actually really think they can beat him. And if that's true, then you have no chance.
Yeah, you've cracked it if you're Fury and if you've got people thinking that. Anyway, moving on, the following week, from Wembley to Madison Square Garden for Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. It was billed as the greatest fight in women's boxing history, and Andy, it certainly seemed like it.
Yeah, it was magnificent, and DAZN did a great job with it. I think it did get a lot of publicity. I think they did well with it in America. They got it on some mainstream TV, I think, in America as well, didn't they? Some morning shows and things like that. And you know, I've talked quite a lot throughout the course of the year about how the challenges that DAZN face with kind of getting their message out there and all the rest of it. But I thought they did an amazing job with that fight, and Matchroom as well. And the fight itself just delivered, didn't it? It was a brilliant fight. And I listened to it on the radio, and it was kind of interesting because about halfway through the fight, I kind of got the sense that this was going a bit wrong for Katie Taylor. I mean, she had a rough, was it fourth or fifth?
I think it was the fifth.
Really got after her.
Yeah, she almost stopped her.
But at the end, I was thinking to myself, well, by the sound of it, this is kind of up in the air. But then the consensus that formed afterwards was that even though it was close, she definitely deserved it. And when I watched it, I kind of felt like that was right. But Serrano supporters would look at that torrid round she gave Taylor and think this is why we need 3-minute rounds. But the fight as a whole, for me, was a great example of why those 2-minute rounds are unbelievable.
Yeah. Turbo boxing.
All killer.
Turbo boxing, exactly.
Deck. How did you see the fight first and foremost? Who did you see?
I had Taylor winning it. Yeah. I remember writing a comment piece in the week after for one of the Irish papers, and it was basically Taylor's done it all, hasn't she? Like, she won 5 World Amateur Championships, 5 of them. She won a gold medal at the Olympics. She's obviously done it all as a professional already. But what she'd never done is had to wrestle a victory out of the jaws of defeat. Never. We'd never seen her have to do that, come through the fire like she did. Like, obviously she would have done it as an amateur, but on a totally different scale. You've got Amanda Serrano, this big puncher, like looking like she's going to get stopped. Like, she looked like finished. And then she didn't. She managed to rally, didn't get stopped, turns it around, wins the fight for me. And then they're swinging right at the end. Like, the final 10 seconds, they're proper. Taylor nearly touches down at that point as well. Could have been a knockdown if she did, and then the result changes. Yeah, I thought it was an unbelievable night, and it like an advert for women's boxing and all those normal platitudes. We're kind of beyond that with women's boxing, I think, anyway, and those two proved it. But for Taylor, like, it was like another, like one of the final ticks on her sort of legacy, that she had that moment where she had to properly turn it around. I thought it was amazing. Again, like, not want to put down on it, but we didn't get the rematch. Probably never will. Which is sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's talk about it, and you would hope that whatever's going on with Eddie Hearn and Jake Paul, it doesn't scupper any chance of a rematch, and they can put it to one, because ultimately the fighters are, the ones that suffer. You don't want kind of.
I mean, it still makes the most money for each fighter, that fight, doesn't it? Although I suppose Serrano has got other options now, because Baumgartner's super feather, she could box her instead. There are other people around for her, which
Taylor looks like they're going to be Cameron or something like that as well.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, an interesting one. Going to try and skate through the rest of these. And the last one in April, Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez. Had a great year. I think Shakur Stevenson's kind of gone about his business the way that he does, and performed really well in a fight that, I think everybody probably leaned towards him, but I think the golfing quality on the night was vast, considering it was a unification bout.
Yeah, that was a proper win, wasn't it? That was like, yeah, the way he went about his business and the way he cruised it, really, and like everything was on his terms. He's like special. We all know he is anyway. I remember comparisons between that and Mayweather against, remind me his name, Gennaro Hernandez, which was a similar. Actually, the comparison is a bit off, but the idea that it's this seasoned, like been there, done it, world level, if not elite level, and then like Stevenson just schooled him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like using that word, but it was a proper one-sided, like just his pace as well. He's so good. And straight away you're thinking, okay, what's he do with Davis? What does he do with the fight I want to see is Lomachenko? Like, how does he? But it was the perfect style matchup for him actually as well. And the same with Hernandez and Mayweather back then. It was like perfect for him.
Yeah, and I feel like I think we'd all probably going into that fight picked Stevenson to win the fight.
Yeah.
But I really, really fancied him strongly, based obviously on Stevenson as well, but seeing how Oscar Valdez struggled with Robson Conceição as well. I think he really struggled with Conceição.
Yeah, he's lucky in that fight.
Really lucky in that fight. That's another example of what we were talking about earlier with ESPN. I remember at 5 o'clock in the morning or something, full of KFC, watching the fight, and Tim Bradley and Andre Ward were saying, and you got all of these people on Twitter, saying that he lost the fight. He was like, I was thinking I feel like really offended because I'm thinking like my eyes deceiving me completely. Like I felt Conceição won that fight clearly.
I mean, it's a conversation for another day, but I do find people could say what they like about how I do it or whatever, but I do find some coverage now. I don't think it's doing the sport any favours.
No. And it's kind of like, no, this is how it went. And if you don't agree with it, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's so patronising. It's so patronising being kind of like spoken down to like that.
Yeah.
I've got no time for it at all.
Me neither. So anyway, moving away from that. Shakur Stevenson, I thought he was magnificent that night. The fight went pretty much how I expected it to go. I thought Valdez was always going to struggle with somebody who can control the range on him, just kind of keep offsetting him, not letting him plant those feet and get them big shots off.
That was the fight though, wasn't it, where... Did Valdez test positive?
No, that was before the Conceição fight for the fentanyl, which was another issue going into that fight. And that was another part of the kind of the broadcast where it was like, I know everybody's upset because of the fentanyl, but he won the fight. And it's like, no, they're two separate issues. But no, it was the one before that. I actually spoke to Mauricio Suleiman from the WBC, and he said, he had
your bestie.
We have an interesting relationship.
His flights every 2 minutes.
We have an interesting relationship, me and Mauricio. But I remember me saying, like, at the time, like Valdez got put on like probation. He had to go and do some talks in schools and stuff. I was like, what is this about? What are you on about? Like, how is that like a legitimate you tested positive right now, right on that blackboard 50 times. I will not take PEDs. It's sort of like one of those very strange things that can only happen in boxing. But back to the fight, I thought Shakur Stevenson was brilliant, Andy.
Yeah, he was, and I think we expected big things when he turned pro. And what I find interesting sometimes with fighters, big name amateurs who turn pro with top rank, who've got really good matchmakers and who know what they're doing, and who in the early stages of your career, they're not necessarily interested in puffing up your show reel with a load of big knockouts, although they appreciate the value of a show reel one every now and again. I think Stevenson underwhelmed a few early on because he went the distance maybe more than people thought he should and stuff like that. But actually, they're getting around him and they're doing the right thing by him because they knew how good he was, how good he is, how much better he can still be. And when he stepped up every time so far, he's just looked like he's got plenty to spare. No one has really given him any trouble. I don't see that day dawning anytime soon either, to be honest.
No, I think he probably could have been a little bit cleaner with the Conceição. When he boxed Conceição later on this year, I think he probably could have had a little bit of a cleaner performance. There was a few low blows in there, and it wasn't I guess vintage Stevenson. But Conceição's a good fighter, Olympic gold medalist. Yeah,
there you go, man. You can't beat Lomachenko that time and didn't get it, but stuff like that.
He can box. He can certainly box.
I think it's funny, him and Devin Haney. You're looking at two guys clearly who formative years spent the time around Floyd Mayweather and watching him, whether they realise it or not. But that desire and happiness to just cruise it and to just kind of have him on a string. And it's like the Money Mayweather, which they would have been watching when they were really...
That's a really good
Even
point.
if they hadn't realised it. You know, they always say that the music you like when you're between 16 and 24, that's what you listen to for your whole life. It's like when they were coming up and really trying to work out what they liked and who they did, Mayweather was the man. And that's what he did to people. Yeah. And that's what they do.
That hit and don't get hit.
Yeah. Don't get hit. And like,
that is
happy
boxing,
that
isn't it?
they put the foot down. Why bother? A lot of the time, might as well just keep doing this. It's probably more impressive.
It's wide enough that they know they can't possibly get robbed, even if the motivation to do that were to be there, which is unlikely when you're the A side.
Yeah.
But
it's sort of like with Haney when he went over to box Kambosos. He was just sort of like, I'm just going to keep doing this, mate. It doesn't matter. Go to Australia, no problem.
Yeah, do the same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't matter. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they both spent time around him, and at that time, that's what he was doing twice a year, and they probably were watching that.
You've got that kind of interesting blend. I mean, it's a wonderful blend of talent around now 135. Now Stevenson's moved up 135, 140. You've got like Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis as well. Have kind of gone through the amateurs and like all of the credentials from that. And you've got Devin Haney, who turned pro in Mexico and has done everything like the pro way, and yet they're still here. I mean, Devin Haney had a wonderful line. I can't remember what it is, but he said about Keyshawn Davis, because Keyshawn Davis was talking about when I get this and when I do this and when I do that, and Devin Haney went, I'm younger than you. And I got all of these belts. Yeah. What are you talking about when you do this and when you do that? And I just think like it kind of shows like with Shakur Stevenson, I've mentioned this in the past as well, there's a brilliant spar with them both sparring in Mayweather's gym before Stevenson goes to the Olympics years ago. It's a really good watch. If you haven't watched it, watch it. But it kind of shows how a pro schooling and an amateur schooling can still both kind of bring you up to this point. And it's just slight tweaks of how they've been brought along. And they're both, as you've said, like a kind of mini Mayweather style of going about their business. It's fascinating to watch how they've both developed and where they could potentially go. Because I think those two, with the way that they box, and it's more the temperament, the old head on young shoulders, and they've got all of the athleticism that goes with it. They're going to be difficult fighters to beat. I think Davis can punch, so when you can punch and I think he's an underrated boxer, he's always going to have a chance, but those two are going to take some beating, I think, over the next 10, 15 years
They
or
give
so.
nothing away.
Yeah. Not in any hard fights. You can't see where, you know, the wear and tear might come. You don't really see them out of shape or, you know.
And then you get little things like, you know, timing has worked well for Stevenson because he did everything as a youth, but then he became a senior and boxed in the Olympics at 19. And you only get that number one spot with a team like the USA if you're really, really good. But that's great timing because it meant that he then had done what he wanted to do. Not quite because he wanted gold, but him against Ramirez in the Olympic final, that's one of the best you'll see.
I don't think we'll see that again in the pros, which is a shame.
No, they're moving apart.
It's a shame, isn't it?
It is a shame. It is a shame. But that you do need a little bit of luck with the way things pan out sometimes, and that was perfect that he just slipstreamed out of a mega career as a youth straight into the seniors. Little bit of WSB sprinkled in as well to kind of add to the pot. Got the silver medal. Cried because he didn't get a gold, which was brilliant. And then signed with Top Rank, who are the best, I think, at bringing along those top level.
They've got the track record,
level amateurs.
haven't they?
Their track record is
it's unbelievable.
And the whole thing is just unfolding as I guess you could argue it should for someone like him, but you know, it very often doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Robeisy Ramirez. I mean, okay, he's getting there now, but he turned over and he got beaten in his debut. To a guy who, you know, with all due respect, is nowhere near his level. Right, okay, moving into May. I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut at the end of June. But anyway, May. First week of May. Now
birthday. Oh, did you have that down?
What, your birthday? Yeah, so
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th. We're going to talk about Deck Taylor's birthday.
Can't even remember it.
May the 7th. Some people would pick this for the upset of the year. Not me. Dimitri Bivol, UD versus Canelo Alvarez. I got quite annoyed going into this fight because a lot of people were... I picked Bivol openly to win the fight. And people would say to me, but he'll never get the decision. And just what we've spoke about there with Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson, if he wins 9 or 10 rounds, clear, he's going to win the decision. There's no home cooking that can get you out of that, even with somebody like Canelo in Vegas. The amount of times, you're like, yeah, but you know it's Canelo in Vegas, don't you? Oh, well, fuck yeah. So, I forgot about that, mate. Like, I don't do my job.
I agree, but I remember doing a preview on this and saying that I thought that he was capable of of doing enough to win, but that it would be close enough that he
Yeah.
could get it.
I just couldn't. I couldn't understand why Canelo was fighting him. I have to be honest. I couldn't understand why you go into Oscar De La Hoya, who he's not Eddie Hearn's biggest fan. He said after the fight, which is obviously telling, Bivol is somebody that you put on the undercard. You put on the undercard of a Canelo fight. You see how he looks and you see how he was received. If he looks great, you maybe push him to one side. If he doesn't look great or he has a great fight and he's vulnerable, then you push him up and you make Canelo versus him down the line. But you do Canelo Golovkin first because you know he can beat him, and then you build that fight if you want to do that down the line. And going into that fight, I think he was always my kind of pick for most underrated fighter, Bivol. And then now he's not underrated.
I can see why people. I can see how it happened, because he had a few performances, Bivol, where he didn't exactly set the world alight, hadn't he?
But he's a proper light heavyweight.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Sergei Kovalev.
People have been talking previously about how, and he'd said it himself, I could probably do 168, to fight Callum Smith. And stuff like that.
Callum Smith as well really is one massive weight cut away from being a proper light heavyweight, fully fledged light heavyweight. And that was my thinking, is look at the job that Canelo did. He didn't struggle with a tall guy like Smith. But obviously, as it happened, it was the style.
Feet and the educated.
education.
It just had all of those kind of factors going into it for me.
Beautiful to watch, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was, and it was. I don't think it was Canelo's best performance, but I don't think he's going to have his best performance at 175 pounds. Look what he did with Kovalev.
Yeah, that was a struggle.
He lost.
I had him behind.
Yeah,
losing the fight. Yeah. What funny in that fight? He was losing the fight, but at no point I think he'd lose.
Yeah, I
knew
expected it to come.
Yeah,
and expected
but never
it to
with
come.
Bivol.
No. There was a moment in the fight where I thought, if Bivol puts on the gas here, could he get rid of him? Like, obviously, Canelo's a granite chin, master defense and stuff like that. But yeah, really strange fight I felt for Canelo to take. A fair play to him. He wants to take the biggest challenges, and the biggest opponents out there, and he's you cleaned up this 168 pound division. It kind of makes sense to go up to 175. But I thought Bivol was excellent on the night, but I feel like I don't think he did anything spectacular. It's kind of his style anyway. He doesn't ever do. He's not like a flashy, fancy Dan as Jim Watt used to talk about in years gone by. But what he does and what he's good at, he's very, very good at.
That distance control, knowing exactly where he was, and obviously distance in that fight was crucial. But also, he had the bruises on his arms and stuff. He knew what he was doing in terms of looking for the catch and counter. It was like to a T. And I know Gary Jones hates talking about game plans or BAME plans, but he had one, didn't he? And he knew that in and out, and that you see the training videos now, and that's all he does. He's on his toes, in and out, straight punches, nothing flashy at all. And the problem is when then you put him against someone like Craig Richards. No disrespect to Craig Richards, but
do the same thing.
He does the same thing, and then it looks flat and it looks a bit uninspiring and a bit like, well, this is not that exciting. Same against Lenin Castillo, because that's what he does. But then when he does it against
Salamov,
Canelo, he does it against Canelo, you're like, oh, okay, this works. This is like the formula, and that's the formula to beat Canelo. Like, we had the blueprint with Mayweather, but that was just weird angles and but also the context of it and the timing and stuff. It didn't look like there'd be anyone out there to beat. I thought Benavidez, a wild card, a bit of a fireball that you just chuck at him and try and knock him out, but Bivol just did a number on him. It was one of my favourite fights of the year, I've got to say.
Yeah, I love watching people win just using world-class basics.
Yeah.
If you want to be world-class anything, you have to have world-class basics in any sport. That for me is just an absolute given. I know people might throw in someone like Wilder, but Wilder's got some world-class basics.
Got a bronze medal.
Exactly, and that's what he did. Bivol, he had total confidence that whatever Canelo threw, he could take it on that shell, that shell wouldn't crack. And that shell had cracked with everybody else, and then the gloves drop, and then you're bang in trouble. But with him, he just thought, no, this is fine. I can do this.
He did an interview early in the week where somebody had said to him, like, what do you think about Canelo talking about fighting Usyk? And the look on Bivol's face, he was offended that people thought that Canelo. I think he said, like, people think this guy's going to come up to light heavyweight, beat me, think he's Superman, and just going to go and beat Usyk and go do this at heavyweight and all of that stuff. He's like, he's a small man, like he's moving up into my weight class. And there was just there's a difference between having the confidence to win the fight and then that kind of like, yeah, who the fuck is this guy? Like, this 5'8" little Mexican fella's not going to come up to light heavyweight and beat me.
I love those reactions though, because they are so telling, aren't they?
Yeah, it's so organic.
Exactly. You see someone give a reaction where they're looking at the interviewer, and it's not
What
some
are you
kind
talking
of like,
about?
It's not some kind of like mock incredulity. They literally think they're mental.
Yeah.
They're looking at him just thinking, what are you? what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is what you're saying makes no sense.
And that just, I feel like that just translated into the ring, where he kind of like, it sounds like a really simple thing to say. He fought him like he was the bigger man, where he was just kind of against the ropes. Oh, okay, right.
You're
Back over there now.
Doing exactly what I expect you to do. It's not going to work. You're slowly realising it's not working. I'm not going to do anything different to give you a chance. So we're going to do 12 rounds. I'm going to beat you easily.
And that was
thanks for coming.
That was the other thing. Canelo didn't have he was beleaguered at times in that fight as well, out of ideas, bereft of any sort of change of pace or anything. That was just down to Bivol.
He had that 18-month period where he looked invincible.
Yeah.
Canelo, and he just had he lost a couple of rounds against Billy Joe Saunders, but he was never in any danger of losing a fight. Same with Caleb Plant, and it was the
massive
first
occasions as well.
Yeah. I mean, there was I think one of the most telling parts of that is Eddie Reynoso in the corner before the 12th round. And he was like, you can't knock him out. So just try and keep doing what you're doing and stay in there. And like, it was literally what he was telling him. He was just sort of saying well, we've only got 3 more minutes, and let's just sort of get out of here. And like, it's just, you don't see that from Canelo. And Bivol's just sort of in the other corner, just thinking, this is fun, this is easy, yeah. And it was absolutely that. Afterwards, he had that wonderful sort of humility about him after the fight, where he said, "Sorry, Eddie, for ruining your plans, but I was always going to beat this guy," basically, and that's how it went. Do you think we see the rematch?
No, personally, I think it should have shown Canelo, and I love the fact that he did it. Plenty of fighters correctly, I think, in the past, and Mayweather would be a good example of refused to step up what would be too far in weight, because they just think I'm not doing that just so I can satisfy people's desire to see me lose.
He had that with Golovkin, didn't he?
I love the fact that Mayweather didn't do that, because why should he do it?
Because if he'd have beat Golovkin, they would have gone, all right, go for Cole Froch.
There you go. But Canelo's done it, and he was just up against. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't do a thing with Bivol. And I think for that reason, I just don't see how or why the second fight would be any different, because Bivol's not going to think, in the second fight I really want to make a statement and stop him. He's not that guy, is he? He'll just think, no, this went absolutely fine last time. Let's just do that again. I can't believe you're letting me do it again, but we'll just do that again.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I wouldn't see a rematch. I hadn't even considered it. Like, unless it had happened straight away, and it's like, right, I want to go and get my revenge. Although Canelo is someone who would be, he wants to do things that, like, he has ambition. He's not going, how can I make the most money with the least this and that?
He's not doing that.
But having said that, I don't see it. Hopefully he fights John Ryder next.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Get him over here, maybe, for single.
I think that could happen. I saw John at the weigh-in for Fury-Chisora, and I hadn't seen him for a while, actually. And, just shook his hand and told him how pleased I was that, although it wasn't an incredible fight against Zach Parker, it was just great to see him. Nothing against Zach Parker, but I've done a lot of John's fights and know him a bit. Probably as well as I know any fighter, because I don't really make it my business to know them particularly. And I just love to see him fight Canelo, because, like I say, he didn't get that decision against Callum Smith, which would have cost him a lot of money, and he could have got it. If he fights Canelo, win, lose or draw, he's made way more money than he could ever have imagined of making out of boxing. And you just got to love it when anyone gets that. But John has worked really hard.
28th of May, maybe I'm missing some stuff out, but quite a quiet month. May's usually absolutely banged out. 28th, speaking of banged out, Gervonta Davis versus Rolando Romero. Yeah. One of the most enjoyable, weird, strange build-ups that I've seen to a fight in a while. And the fight was a little bit strange as well.
Yeah, he was winning for me. Like, or at least maybe it was one where you're overrating it a bit, but he was doing better than I thought he was going to do. And then he just got cleaned out, didn't he? And he just messed it up. He crossed his feet, or it was, he definitely overreached with one, and he just got knocked out. I thought it was going to be far more comprehensive and one-sided than it was. And then actually gave a good account of himself. I don't want to really get into it, but obviously he had all the stuff that happened and the accusations and everything else. And the whole thing was there was a bit of a sour taste about the whole fight. That guy, like, he's hard to, I don't know, I can't really get my head around.
He's a very unique character,
but also you almost have to respect it because it's like and then since he is, I don't know if he's deluded or he's putting it on, but the way that he talks about that fight since, it's like he got lucky shot and all this sort of stuff, but there was nothing lucky about it. Davis, and it was one of them where you just think, oh, he knows he'll get him.
That's kind of how I saw the fight. He was not letting him have his way, but he was kind of like eventually he was just looking. There's one. Oh, yeah, there's one. Oh, yeah, bank that. And he's become that kind of low output. I mean, he always has been a little Davis, that low output puncher where he looks for the big singles and he catches you with it, and he's got too much fire for you to hold up to the shot. So I think it was the 5th round we just started to touch him up with the left hand a little bit. And then in the 6th round, he walked him into a beautiful shot. I think I tweeted a few rounds before, he's going to walk into a big shot here because he's just walking forward, crossing his legs with his chin up in the air. And Davis, as smart as he is, and he is an intelligent fighter, you could just see him kind of looking at that and thinking, and then eventually, bang. And my favourite thing about that knockout was how quickly Davis got out and was ready to go again.
Yeah.
That was amazing. He hit him with that big left hand, and the Rolly goes into the ropes, and Davis is already there waiting to hit him again on the other side. And that was just brilliant. I know you're a big fan of Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, I am. He's probably top of my list of fighters I've never seen from ringside, but would really want to.
You weren't at the Copper Box.
No.
Can you believe it?
I wasn't there either, yeah.
The Copper Box.
I know.
I was there. I wouldn't believe it had happened unless I was.
Yeah, I know. It was that was a mad week watching that. You know,
First defence as well.
Mayweather in town, and you couldn't have got 2 more different teams, could you? The Team Davis and Team Walsh. I mean, it just that for me just made it. It was crazy. It almost didn't feel real, like you say. But Davis, he's got a great backstory and all that kind of thing. But never mind that. It just fighters who've got that confidence to box the way you just described, whereby they're never looking to win on points. They're not looking to go massively gung-ho for the knockout right from the beginning. And you know, that if you look for it too much, it'll never happen. But he's just supremely confident that it is going to fucking happen because he will make it happen. And he's got the skill set where he can wait for the opportunities. And then when they present themselves, just take it like that. You know, it's so impressive.
Rolly was ahead in the fight and then he was knocked out.
Yeah, and then it's gone, then it's over, yeah.
Fight was over like that.
Yeah.
And there's something to be. It is that kind of. It's similar to Wilder. Obviously, he's a much different type of fighter to Wilder, but it is that kind of what you were talking about earlier. That essence of boxing, where it's like that's what you tune in for. You tune in for that spectacular moment where the fight's over, where the fight's it's building up to that crescendo, and then it comes. And he always, more often than not, apart from the Isaac Cruz fight, I don't know, it's been the distance in other fights, but it always seems to happen with him, and he always finds that spectacular showreel knockout. Before we move into June, and we're not going to obviously have time to discuss what comes in 2023, but we will make an exception for Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. So since they did the Mike Tyson podcast, and Garcia was on it, and he was a beautiful, like, Dolce & Gabbana white shirt, and Tyson got Davis on the FaceTime, and he's 2 rounds, I do this. He was doing the Ali shuffle and stuff like that. Since then, I was sold, mate. I was in on that fight. That was my one fight that I wanted to see. The 2 weeks around that fight, but that podcast and the content that came out of it was just electric. Anytime you turned on the timeline, you had Davis saying something, Garcia saying something, both of their fan bases. You had like hood guys from Baltimore arguing with 13-year-old girls from California. It was amazing. It was just everything about boxing that you want from two completely different styles. Not necessarily in the ring, because they're both, brilliant fighters and big punchers. But outside the ring, there's something about that blend of those two that really gets me excited.
Yeah, it's a collision of worlds, isn't it?
It really is.
And it's pure box office and it's pure crossover. Yeah. And we need it. And that whole list of fighters at that weight that you could put together, that is the number one out of all of them that I'd like to see. And it looks like it could happen.
Well, it's happening, isn't it? What I found quite funny was the sort of the reception of Fury Joshua over here and Garcia Davis over in America, where you had Americans when that was announced going, that fight's where's the date, where's the location? But now it's happening. It's like, oh no, it's definitely going to happen over there. Boxing. But you would hope I mean, it looks as though Ryan Garcia is going to box Marcito Hester.
Yeah, and then Davis is boxing Hector Garcia, which is a good fight.
It's a really good fight.
Yeah,
What you don't want is somebody to lose
or break a hand.
Yeah,
and that's what I mean. As soon as that happens, it gets elongated. So I'm not counting any chickens yet, but it's what boxing needs. That injection that is pure box office, and just the way. Can you imagine the week? But you know what's funny? It's a bit like what you were saying earlier. It's weird because they're so much younger than me. Whereas like all super fights like that.
What are you going to talk to Ryan Garcia
yeah,
about?
but actually he's a good interview. But it's more always the vantage point of these super fights have been like boxers older than me or then my age. But now they're like, it seems like two kids. So I'm interested to see how it all unfolds in the weeks. I hope it happens because that is, I don't know. I've picked Davis pretty comfortably. For me, he's big favourite in my eyes. But then you watch that. Who was it? He beat the left hook.
Javier Fortuna.
Where
you have to slow it down, frame.
See it land. But he does do things wrong. His chin's in the air a lot. Obviously, Campbell dropped him, so you think Campbell dropped him with southpaw and whatever. Davis is different beast entirely. But you just never know. He's got power in he, Garcia.
Yeah, he has, and he's got that kind of arrogance as well that you need, that young
to
puncher.
Have any chance of landing it.
Where he's going to go in there and say, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to let my shots go and knock him out in 2 rounds. And he believes it as well. He believes it. I mean, when Campbell dropped him, you mentioned in that fight, he dropped him. He was up at 2. Up at 2. Like you'd think in your head, like, oh no, yeah, okay, 2, up at 2, and then 3 and 4. Oh, he was up on his feet at 2, and he came back and he threw an 8-punch combination. Like that. That's the type of kind of that youthful exuberance that you need. And also what you said about big fights becoming kind of like with older fighters. It's often like Crawford Spence, where you've got guys who have kind of Khan-Brook.
They've seen it.
They exercise every other route to make a few quid before. These guys, like Garcia, fair play to him. He's kind of run towards the fire, and he wants the fight.
He has for a long time.
And there's something to be said about that, isn't there?
Oh yeah. And this could set a great example if these two do it because. You know, we had all this chat about like the new 4 Kings and all that bollocks, you know, off the back of Lopez beating Lomachenko. And I describe it as bollocks because that's what it turned out to be. Because nobody's boxed anybody in that bracket, which is disappointing. And if we can just get people doing this, you know, I know it's easy to look back at the 1980s and stuff like that, but you look at Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns, and they met each other for the first time in their early 20s.
Yeah.
More of that, because if they have an epic, they can do it again.
Imagine how big that would be.
Bundles of money, and that's what they're all in it for.
And what you could put the money into the sport as well. You're going to have people who are going to be watching that fight, and people it's going to appear on TV stations and stuff that don't care about boxing.
Yeah, that's it.
Not interested in boxing at all, but they know Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia.
You know what? Maybe that is the way to
do that, yeah.
And when you described it as a collision of worlds, that's exactly right, because Garcia, he's got the image that he's got, which he probably likes and doesn't, because he'll like it because it markets him well and makes him money.
He plays into it as well, doesn't he?
His fights is kind of hard, if you like. He probably doesn't like it. And he might be one of these guys who just thinks, I want to show people that I can dog it out, because they look at me and think I can't.
A bit like Leonard, to be fair. Golden boy, you know, like that real shiny all-American. It's like, no,
Wheaties box.
Davis is more kind of haggler, isn't he?
Yeah,
but it'd just be brilliant. Yeah, it would be good.
If I had to push you for a winner of that, Andy.
I would pick Davis, but I think it would be a good fight, and I think Garcia would emerge from it with his reputation, his stock, his marketability, his everything increased.
Okay, into June, we were talking about knockouts of the year. We've already had 2 big contenders. We saw another one as Joe Cordina rendered Kenichi Ogawa unconscious in the 2nd round to pick up the IBF Super Featherweight World title. A massive moment for Joe Cordina and Welsh boxing. It's unfortunately the little Welsh shit is not here to talk about it. But let's talk about a real fighter from Cardiff.
Way to talk about Joe Cordina.
I mean, Joe Cordina, definitely not Joe Cordina.
Got married the other day, Joe Cordina, I think, actually.
Oh, did he?
Big up Joe Cordina.
Yeah.
Shout out Mr. and Mrs. Cordina. Big him up.
They've been together for ages, but they finally got married.
All downhill from here.
An amazing knockout from Joe Cordina.
Yeah. I think as well, when you think about knockouts, you have to talk about context, and that was first world title fight in Cardiff against this guy. I can't remember the exact odds, but he wasn't a favourite. I think Ogawa was probably a favourite in that fight. And he's chinned him. One punch in the second round. Like, that is like manna from heaven. That is like what he would have dreamt of his whole life, especially someone like Cordina, who's not known as this big, explosive puncher. It was, again, one of those scintillating moments. It kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? And then the fight's over. And you think, fuck, he's done it.
Yeah, and in a method, like you say, that you really would not expect.
It was the one that you wouldn't expect. You think,
you
Cordina on points,
12
Ogawa,
rounds,
yeah.
don't you?
Yeah, that was the one outcome you would not expect, especially not that early. He's done the business. Since then, it hasn't gone well for him, but he'll never forget that moment. Like, that was the pinnacle, and the people there in Cardiff. I wish they'd make Cardiff a real hotbed, because I've got family there, to be fair, so I've got a bed to sleep in when I cover there.
You're the only person who's got accommodation.
Yeah, because everyone else is fucked. But like, there's no reason why they can't build Cordina. And then when they were going to send him to Abu Dhabi for the fight against Rakimov, which never happened, I was like, oh, that's a shame. Like, you just did that against the Ogawa, like, get him back to Cardiff. But I know the reasons for that. But yeah, that fight and that win and that, it's well in the running for knockout of the year.
Remember Eddie did an interview with Dewey Powell, of course, Welsh boxing scribe, and he said, we've done our money, we've spent loads of money to get him over here, and we lost loads, but now look, we've got Joe Cordina as Welsh world champion, blah, blah, we're going to build Welsh boxing, we're going to do this, going to take him to Abu Dhabi for the money, bruv. Yeah. and that was literally it. But yeah, I mean, you would have known Joe for many years and watched him over the years. That kind of spoke about it there, not just the training camp for that or the time as a pro and the hand injuries that he had before that fight, but traveling around the world as an amateur, all of those years of dedication and sacrifice for that one moment, and he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, he did, and it was great to see, because I remember watching him in the amateurs. He won European gold, and he medalled in that was his big achievement, winning European gold, and you just wondered whether at the really big occasion he was going to do it, because I remember watching him at the World Championships in Doha in 2015, and he got Conceição quite early. I think it was his second fight, and he won the first round, and then he just kind of drifted through the next two and lost them and got eliminated. And he should have won. Like, he should have won the fight. And Conceição went on and won gold at Rio, and I just wondered whether he'd really get to grips with professional boxing and want it enough, but he chose to train with Tony Sims, which immediately meant that he had to move away from home in camp and I think live with Ricky Burns, which was good for him. And that's a long time away from your partner and children, so that showed you something straight away. But then he had injuries, and it was a bit of a slow burn. And again, you kind of wonder. But he's shown a lot of mental fortitude, actually, and that was a great performance. And I think he'll beat Rakimov and get that world title back. I mean, he has been unlucky with what's happened, but in the IBF defence, Rakimov moved aside basically to allow Cordina to fight Ogawa, because he was supposed to fight Ogawa. I think those two were paired together on the understanding that he would get to fight for the world title next, and then that wouldn't have been the case because Cordina pulled out with a hand injury. So that's how that ended up happening. But having watched that fight in Abu Dhabi, I think Cordina will beat him.
Yeah, I think
get that title back.
I think he'll beat him as well. I feel like there was quite a few moments really that Zelfa Barrett was able to take advantage of that. I think Joe Cordina will look at and think, certainly the movement on the back foot. He walked Rakimov into some really good counters in that fight. I think Cordina will fancy his chances of doing the same. Devin Haney went for undisputed against George Kambosos. I was trying to work out whether that was the first fight or the second fight. It's been a very long year, and they were both basically the same fight.
Were the same, yeah, they were.
Whereby Devin Haney pretty much had his way with George Kambosos, kept him at the end of that lovely long jab, and really cruised his way to becoming the youngest undisputed champion in history, I think.
Yeah.
Well, ish.
Yeah, of this era.
Full back. We don't want to get into it.
I wasn't going
to. I don't want to get into it. I get told off.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember as well the context. The old man couldn't get there. Remember?
Yeah. So
all sorts.
The dad couldn't get there. Australia notoriously strict for visas and entry requirements. I think Bill Haney has a bit of a past. Ben Davison, also his coach, couldn't get into Australia at the
right.
time. But again, this was kind of like old head on young
what
shoulders
I
stuff
mean.
that we were talking
That's
about.
what I
Haney
mean,
was like,
even
yeah,
more-
my dad's not here, my trainer's not here, I'll beat this
His
guy.
dad do the corner in.
Yoel Judah, yeah.
So like,
I think Bill got there in the end.
he got there in the end, but I remember thinking,
I think he turned him on a Friday.
that was the most impressive thing about it. It was just not rattled by
He
any
was
of
so
it.
relaxed.
He's like, don't care, because he know, like, doesn't matter where it is, anything else, he knows what he can do to this guy because he's so well schooled at what he does. And yeah, I remember that week just being highly impressed with him. His temperament is incredible, and that again, like, it's going to stand him because what is he now? 20 something,
24,
early 20s.
I think, 23, 24,
He's
something
just
like that.
fucking hell, imagine what, like, he's got 10 years left, like, and he's undisputed. And you wouldn't like really confidently pick anyone to beat him.
No.
Really. He might be someone he's big. He's a big boy, isn't he? He's
He
tall,
really is
long.
big for the weight.
So like he's got a future in divisions above. But yeah, another good win. It's weird with Kambosos because who was it I saw? Was it Stevenson actually was saying I might fight Kambosos next? And you sort of think he's got this. There's a currency in Kambosos because of what happened against Lopez, but it sort of just put a pin in him. Those two fights, you think, oh, okay.
You know what he is now.
You know what he is. No one will ever underestimate him again. And it's like Devin Haney didn't. He just did a job twice.
Andy, impressed by I say young Devin, but you know he's showed wisdom. Yeah, he's 24 now. Devin Haney showed wisdom well beyond his years there.
Yeah, it didn't come as a massive surprise because we saw quite a lot of him in the UK, and he came into Sky. I remember one day to do the podcast when I was doing it when Sky were with Matchroom, and he was just quite impressive. And his dad was there, and his dad was impressive too because when you think about that as a combination, it can be a bit of a nightmare, can't it?
I know you're thinking of.
To be honest, it can be a bit of a nightmare. But his dad was very much in the background. His dad didn't want to be on camera or on mic or say anything. He was just there because that's what normally happens, and they're a team, and that's how he does it. And he's got a background in music, I think, Bill. So he knows about contracts and he knows about getting what you're worth and all that kind of stuff. And that's been the main input regarding the career. And I think he has kind of helped out bits and pieces wise with training at times, but he's never really been he's got enough about him to know that there are people much better qualified to do that than him.
Yeah.
So I just think it works. And he is a a good example of an old head on young shoulders. And I think he just knew that he was better than Kambosos.
Yeah.
I think,
And that he would just had to box the way that he pretty much always does. Bivol-esque, if you like, against Canelo, and he'd win.
yeah, I think one of the things that somebody said to me before, because I really thought that it was really brazen of him to just go over there and do that. And
It's twice to Australia.
yeah,
as well.
I like it to sign up for it before. Yeah, okay, we'll for a rematch. Yeah, we're in Australia. Yeah, no worries, mate. I'll see it there, no
Give me
problem.
the money.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody made a really good point where he'd had. You've been to City Gym when he's been working out in there in Vegas. So
He's athletic.
Yeah, so he has like when he's been in there, he has like Mickey Bay, your mate.
Yeah.
So have Mickey Bay. I can't.
Big up Mickey Bay.
Yeah, big up Mickey Bay. I can't make you do the impression. I would laugh. He had Mickey Bay there. He had Mike McCallum there. He's worked with Ben Davison. He's worked with Bill Haney. He's worked with Floyd Senior. So he's got all of these kind of Yoel Judah. I think is his godfather. So he's got all of these kind of. I'll say part-time trainers. That sounds disrespectful, but he's got trainers kind of come and go. But he is what he is, and he's well schooled. And you know, when you make your debut in Tijuana in Mexico, and you're going down there, and you know it's all new to you, that must stand you in good stead. And you're being around Mayweather and holding the belts and stuff like that in years gone by. And he's just like. I remember Andy Lee saying it about Emmanuel Stewart, where Emmanuel Stewart would like take him everywhere, just take him place so he could see what's. And he does it with Paddy Donovan now with Tyson Fury. Make sure he goes because he's used to it. So when he gets there, it's not a surprise. He knows what it's like, and you kind of get that vibe from Haney, where he's sort of been there, seen it, and done it. But he's only 23, 24. But yeah, I was very impressed with him against Kambosos, and I feel like that sort of temperament in a young fighter is very rare. And particularly more so nowadays when we see what happened with Lopez. Lopez beat Lomachenko, had the world at his feet, and now, you know, it's not going great for him. And I think a lot of that is temperament, and a lot of that is not having the head that Devin Haney has on his shoulders. So
It's not straightforward, is it? It's
No.
not like you just go like that.
No.
In fact, it's quite the opposite. But I
mean,
remember
yeah, exactly.
being in Vegas for Mayweather Maidana, maybe even been the first one. So that's quite a few years ago now. And you know how it is where, you know, the cameras sort of form around people, little clusters, people dip in and out. Mayweather Senior was there. And someone said, you know, after 20 minutes, the questions get weird and wonderful. Someone just said, who's the best young fighter in the world or whatever. And he was like, oh, what's his name? He's like, I've forgotten his name. And he gets his phone out. He's like, Devin Haney. And he must have been 14 or 15 at the time. And even then they were tipping him to be something special. So like, that's how early he was in that gym, and obviously going to Mexico and all that sort of stuff. I feel like that's what's grounded him, because he's had no other choice. And the fact that he sought out Ben Davison as well, I think that says a lot about him, that he's gone, I think it was like on Facebook or something, that he's gone, I can see this guy, he's analysing everything in boxing. Haney, he's like, oh, I see this guy, he's doing this cool stuff, and he's, you know, they're looking at YouTube videos and they're doing this and that. I want him to help me. Like, that says a lot, whether it's a good connection or not, which remains to be seen, but that says a lot about how Haney views the sport and his own development and what he can take from other people.
It's also like having that kind of, not having the ego whereby you think that you can do everything yourself. Okay, that might work for this. Yeah. Okay, that might work for that. And then taking and kind of forming a part of it. I remember seeing him doing the kind of the famous Mayweather run down the strip, where he's running behind like a fucking £500,000 car or whatever it is that's driving in front of him, and he's just having his little jog down the Vegas Strip, and you just kind of look at stuff like that and you think, oh, that's different. But like that sort of stuff will stand him in good stead. Anyway, moving on. We've got a few more for June, and then we're gonna have to think about how we do the rest of it, but that's okay. Naoya Inoue, somebody that we saw a couple of weeks ago against Paul Butler. Kind of, I guess I said right the wrongs. He won the first fight, but he left no doubt in a rematch against Inoue-Donaire. Emphatic second round stoppage win, and kind of reaffirmed his status as one of, if not the most deadly punchers in the sport. Deck
made some money on that one. I did, because I thought it was going to happen. It was one of those where it felt like he was kind of picking up from where he left off in the first fight, and he'd worked Donaire out by that point, and obviously Donaire's only getting older, but yeah, it was emphatic, and it was earlier than the bookmakers thought, if you know what I mean, because it looked like Donaire would do enough. He's very cute and he knows what he's doing, but also dangerous and stuff, and it thought maybe he'll get him later or whatever. But
what was your bet?
1 to 3. I can't remember the price.
That would have been a good price.
It was a good price. I think it was a booster somewhere. I didn't think of it.
If it's not,
but I thought
if it's not Bet365, don't mention.
Yeah, forget it. No, I think it was DAZN Bet. Actually, it wasn't. They didn't exist.
Definitely not DAZN.
But yeah, yeah, and it was. Yeah, we spoke about Inoue before we started, and it's like his resume is ridiculous, but it's just not busy enough. And that was, sometimes you wonder then, is that going to affect how they perform? It didn't affect how they performed at all, and that was emphatic is the word.
Andy?
Yeah, I kind of felt going into the rematch that he would make an easier night for himself than he did against Donaire the first time, which was a brilliant fight, but we weren't really, well, I wasn't anyway, really expecting Donaire to kind of provide the sort of resistance and more than that he did. Although I thought, in a way, like won the fight pretty clearly. It was brilliant to watch. So it didn't come as a massive surprise when he managed to cut him down in the second. Nor did it for me really. It kept him where he is in a way. I didn't think, oh wow, like maybe he's now the absolute number one fighter in the world, because essentially he's beaten someone he's already beaten, was already quite old and is now older. Although that sounds a bit unfair when you put it like that, but it's true. Yeah, I mean, with him, you just, where are the challenges for him? That's the potential problem, I guess.
Yeah, Super Bantam is calling next for him. Yeah,
gotta be, isn't it?
Steph Fulton, the winner of Fulton Figueroa 2.
Ooh, yeah, there you go. There's one straight away.
He's a good fight. Who else is there at Super Bantam?
Akhmadaliev,
yeah.
Have a bit of him.
Big fight. Although Fulton, Figueroa Fulton is featherweight, which is a bit stupid, I think. Not stupid, but yeah, I mean, you can't see Inoue jumping up to featherweight to get the winner of that. You think he'll bed in at super bantamweight and then fight maybe an Akhmadaliev or somebody like that. But yeah, I was obviously, how can you not be anything other than impressed with Inoue against Donaire in the rematch? There was that like wonderful slow motion where he shows him the jab, where Donaire in the first fight was trying to counter the jab with a right hand, and he shows him the jab and then drops a right hand over the top, and then the fight after that's over. But yeah, we were discussing it before about Inoue's activity, and I think he was sort of blessed by the WBSS, and I think everybody who's been through the WBSS and with any kind of success has been, you know, it's a charmed life. You get really well paid, you know who you're fighting, you know who you're going to fight if you win, you know when it's going to happen by. I mean, more often than not, I know the kind of the back end of the COVID impacted series wasn't ideal, and that's, I think, where we saw the best of Inoue. He blew away Payano, blew away Manny Rodriguez, and then I think everybody expected him to do the same to Donaire. I feel like although Donaire beat Nordine Oubaali and Raymond Caballo after that, in between the two fights, I feel like that was his last stand. That was the last stand of a great fighter, a really, really top level fighter over the
win against Rodriguez was brilliant. I did that fight, and there was a real kind of, there was just an incredible electricity about the whole thing, where people were really excited about seeing this guy in the UK.
Was it Scotland? Right?
Yeah, it was a Taylor Baranchik undercard,
Great card.
Yeah,
really good card.
And Rodriguez is a good fighter. Like we saw what he, did against Paul Butler, wasn't it, when Butler missed weight? But Ryan Burnett, I wouldn't say he swerved him, but they didn't fancy him massively, so they gave up that belt, didn't they? That, if I remember rightly, that's what happened there. And then he just started catching him early, and you just see the look on Rodriguez's face of utter shock. And that world level, when you see a proper good, solid world champion react like that, it just sent this kind of like surge through the crowd, like they're about to, like they're witnessing something in the wild. Like this predator is like circling someone, and any second now it could be over.
And Manny Rodriguez, he's gone on to do plenty of things since that fight.
Nobody's really good. I mean,
nobody's done anything like that with him.
Utterly savage.
Yeah, gone in a couple of rounds. There was, I think, would Inoue win the WBSS in under 10 minutes? I know that was kind of one of the things. He knocked out Payano in 70 seconds.
Yeah.
Payano, again, like in his own right, a really good fighter over the years. Nobody did that to him. Right, moving on. We've got a couple more to do before we start going on to our end of year stuff. I've got a thought about how we're going to do that, Jordan. Daniel Dubois, WBA champion of the world, regular, against Trevor Bryan out in, I don't know, a bingo hall in Miami with Don King.
Actually,
did you go to that?
Yeah, you did. You all
what was that like?
Jaya Hall in Miami.
I was so jealous of you going
bizarre
to that.
week, right? We got there, got to the hotel. I can't remember what day it was, like a Monday or whatever, like early in fight week. We got there, and the lift in the hotel stuck with about 10 kids in there, and everyone's losing their minds. You can't check in. When you get somewhere and like
all you want to do is check in.
Oh my god! And we're stood there. Like,
so your room's not ready.
No,
Mr. Taylor.
Room's not ready. I'm like, it's almost midnight, and then like the fire department come in. Like Shane's there, Barry, like they're all there, like in the sort of foyer. It was this weird hotel where it was like big square and like it looks down onto this middle bit. That set the tone for the week. Like Don King turns up. There's this. It's the start of hurricane season, so basically every day at 2 p.m. it just pisses down like for the whole rest of the day and the night. We're out in like a hotel near the venue, which is well off the beach, so there's nothing glamorous. Like everyone's going mad in there, including Dubois, and like the Azims were there just sort of pottering about and seeing it all. And then the press conference was weird. Frank didn't make it, so Don's like having a pop at Francis about where's your daddy and all this sort of stuff. And then they gave out this I wish I had it here, but they gave out like this thing basically that it was like a press release, but they gave it to us at the presser, and it was kind of basically against Putin. It was why this is a fight for peace.
The fight for peace.
Daniel Dubois against Trevor Bryan, peace and unity or something. So that it was just a weird week, and then obviously the fight was. You think, I don't know, what was the purse bid like? I can't remember what it was, but it was a lot of money. They won the purse bid. The only reason it got there in this hall, and there's two guys stood there stationed by probably 10 foot from the ring with mops because the place is just flooding and leaking. So they're just there just to stem the flow of water into the ring. And there was barely anyone there. Like it was a kind of strange undercard, local guys. It was good. There was quite good action on the undercard, but Dubois was actually like halfway through. It was early on the night, and then there was 5 or 6 fights after. And you saw pretty quickly in that fight that Bryan was no match really for Dubois, and you could see what he kept doing was that little duck down to avoid the right hand going down that way, and it was like, okay, well, anything around the left now is going to knock him out, and that's what he did. And really, it was a good performance, actually. Did the business. It was weird for Dubois because he did the national anthems. He stood there in this weird setting. He's a kid, and you think, fucking hell, like, what, like, how is he going to respond to this? And he responded in style. Seems like a long time ago as well.
Yeah.
Trees were coming down all the time in the hotel.
It seemed like a long time ago, so like sort of 1982 by the look of it.
Yeah, that's how it felt like. Someone died in the foyer that Shane had to like help.
I remember that, yeah.
Oh my God, it was a weird old week. But he left unscathed, Daniel.
He did. Unfortunately, Trevor Bryan, for him, didn't.
He was good fun, though. He reminded me, he was like a mixture of Riddick Bowe and Jarrell Miller in the way he talked. You know, that American... Like, you sort of sit there thinking...
Brash New Yorker. He's going to win!
Oh, this guy...
He's got a great
and you're
chat.
like 10 seconds in, like...
I was all over it.
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough of it.
As soon as you saw the promo video.
Yeah.
Oh, and the weigh-in, we're all standing there, and obviously they're heavyweights, but the undercard are these guys that are looking fucked, and we're thinking, the weigh-in's supposed to start 10 minutes ago. You look at the bit, and there's no scales. They forgot the scales. I think, fuck, that's one thing. One prerequisite of this event is you need some scales. Someone finally turned up with them. There's people going on there that just want to weigh in, but it was mad old week.
No, those are the kinds of fights where I would spend my own money to go and watch something like that and be around it for a few days.
Not many other people spent their own money.
A strange kind of venue. Just everything about it is just what we wouldn't be used to.
Yeah,
it was just I've absolutely loved it. I remember talking to Steve Lillis a few weeks ago, me and Matt, about Danny Williams against Mike Tyson, and just what a crazy, weird, and wonderful week that was. You know, there was Louisville and. Just all sorts happened, and not many people went because no one thought he would win. And I know not many people went to this because they basically knew that Dubois would win. So it's a kind of opposite end of the spectrum. But yeah, I remember just watching it that night and just seeing the camera just seemed like it was really grainy and far away.
Yeah, and the wide shot of it was there's sort of 40 people crammed around the ring. There's more people in the ring.
Yeah. I've been to international amateur tournaments where there've been more people there. Similar kind of setting.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant.
And you think, where's the money coming from this? It was on donking.com or whatever on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Nate Campbell was there. Remember Nate Campbell, the lightweight champion? He was doing the comms.
Him a bit.
I chatted to him. One of them over breakfast in the hotel where you think it's going to take 5 minutes.
He's good company.
We were there for like 2 hours.
He's great company.
He's phoning people and basically waxing lyrical about why light middleweight is the strongest division in sport by a mile. Don't try and ever have an argument with him.
No, he's a great guy. Like if you go over there, he lives in Jacksonville, and you get any opportunity to kind of like use him for anything, do it. Because I did a couple of tournaments with him. I did the WSB finals in Tashkent with him in 2016, and then the final qualifier for the Olympics in Venezuela a couple of months later, and it's just great company.
Get him on
great company. Really good stories. Tremendous stories. Not all of them are able to be repeated, but plenty are.
We're used to that.
Life stories, all that kind of stuff. He's a top bloke.
As for the actual fight itself,
what was it, 5th or 6th round in the end?
4th round. He dropped him in. As you said, I think we spoke to Josh Pritchard, part of Shane McGuigan's training team, and he said to Dan, just throw the left hook. Throw the left hook. Just don't worry about anything else. Throw the left hook. Took him 4 rounds, but he got there in the end, as have we, towards the end of June. Just one fight left to discuss, and it's somebody that we're going to be seeing on these shores early next year, a certain Artur Beterbiev, with a 2nd round stoppage win over Joe Smith Jr. in what I felt was, until a couple of weeks ago when I watched Inoue Butler, one of the strangest game plans that I've seen from a challenger in a fight. I understand completely people saying that, you know, you got to go at him and Joe Smith can punch and stuff like that, but there's going at somebody and there's running at Artur Beterbiev with your hands down. I just couldn't understand what game plan.
2 polar opposites, those approaches, aren't they?
Yeah, completely. It literally couldn't be further apart.
Butler, like when you're kind of boxing someone who, by common consent, is, you know, an absolute savage, what do you do? Yeah, Butler chose kind of...
I think that's definitely the most reasonable way, the Butler way.
Don't give anything away. and see what happens as you go down the stretch.
Yeah.
Maybe something will happen to encourage you, which it didn't in the end. But or you just go all guns blazing. But there's a way of going all guns blazing, and then there's kind of what Joe Smith Jr. did really, and it was sort of. It was ill-advised, you would say, wouldn't you?
It was one of those things that people, even with Anthony Yard, big puncher, does his best. Like the Lyndon Arthur rematch, that version of Anthony Yard is a handful. Do you want to approach the Artur Beterbiev fight like that? I mean, we don't know how whatever way he approaches it's going to be a hard fight. But Joe Smith really kind of left his head on the line. Yeah, his arms out here.
Yeah. It was
bad.
I'd never seen
it was a great example, wasn't it, of how it always. And we saw a lot of this, and you'll talk about it in the second half with Usyk and AJ. It just makes me laugh whenever I see people say, "Oh, he needs to get on top of him, and
stick it on him,
a little bit naughty." All this kind of stuff. It's that easy, is it?
Yeah.
It's that easy, is it? Just rough him up because he doesn't like it in Stoke on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like it's that simple, is it? It's not that simple. If you do that at world level, you will get slaughtered. And that's exactly what Beterbiev showed us.
We've been over this. You look like Beterbiev. I was thinking that.
Somebody said that to me.
That's a big compliment.
It's a big compliment. Yeah, he's 175 pounds. Yeah, I look like I could eat Beterbiev. But yeah, it was a very strange performance, and I feel like we've spoken about this on the pod a few times when we've spoken about Beterbiev. I feel like people are looking for something that isn't there. I really do. I feel like people are looking for signs of slippage that aren't there.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got dropped by Callum Johnson, who can really punch once and then stopped him in 4 rounds or whatever it was, 5 rounds, means nothing.
Yeah. It's almost like people are trying to look for reasons to try and claim that he's not that good.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I don't really get it because as an amateur, he did loads. He won a world amateur title, had those great fights with Usyk, unlucky in the Olympics because they ran into each other before the medals and blah, blah, blah. And he's won every fight by stoppage, and he moved really quick right from the beginning. And he had no time to waste because age-wise, he was kind of.
And he had the promotional issues as well with Yvonne Michelle.
Exactly, which caused him problems. But people seem to. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like. It's kind of like almost like inverted hipsterism, if that's even a thing.
I completely get what you're saying.
Should be a hipster's
dream,
darling because of his amateur background. But it's like people are kind of looking at him and trying to make out somehow that he's overblown, and that's a really difficult thing to do because he isn't.
He really isn't. And I feel like that fight showed it. I mean, Joe Smith's a good fighter. I don't think, with respect to him, I think he's...
Not many people were picking him to win.
No, not me, but I don't think many people were expecting him to box the way that he did. I feel like, even the success he had against Dimitri Bivol, he kind of... Obviously, 2 polar opposite styles in Bivol and Beterbiev, but he had the success at the end of the fight. We caught him with a shot. Surely, keep it tight. You can punch. You're naturally heavy-handed. Try and find the shot at some point in there. Don't force it. And there's forcing it, and then there's doing what Joe Smith Jr. did. Kind of people... It became like we get a lot of stick for it over here, even the Butler stuff today, where it's like, we gave it a go. And kind of had that from the people across the pond, and it's like... Yeah, but it's sort of like, he stood out in traffic. He wasn't scared. He got hit by an 18-wheeler, and it just didn't really make any sense to me. I just couldn't quite work out what the plan was, Dick.
Yeah, I felt like maybe it was a bit of that
nervousness.
Maybe.
And
what you mentioned with Dylan White, it's like, did he really think he could win? And when you get in there, then it's a whole different ball game, and you don't know how you're going to react when that happens. And that was a dissection. It was a dissection, wasn't it?
And being the kind of guy he is, he might think to himself, well, I can't... If I'm going down, that's how I'm going to go down. I have to go down like that. I can't do it any other way.
It's like a fugitive who's like, oh, fuck this, I'm going to face the police. Rather than being like, I'm going to keep running. It's like, let's just have it. And let's see how it ends.
Police KO too.
Doesn't end well.
It didn't.
But that Beterbiev, I've said it before, he's got that no backlift power. It just comes.
Everything's short.
Everything's short and hurts and thudding and just like,
it's the right
anywhere it lands.
It's the right shot in the right area and it hurts. All of it hurts.
Always.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is the end of part 1 of our 2022 review. Thanks, as always, for everybody for joining us. We're going to do some other little bits and pieces now, but stay tuned for episode 2 with myself, Deck Taylor, and DAZN Bets, Barry Jones. Andy Clarke, unfortunately, won't be joining us for part 2.
Oh,
But
okay.
thank you very much, Andy. Always a pleasure.
Yeah,
and we'll
always,
see you in
always.
2023.